Chapter 568. The next morning, Qin Chuan woke up early and washed up, preparing to head to the Heavenly Demon Temple's martial arts arena to watch the competition. Although he looked down on all his opponents verbally, in order not to fail miserably, he still decided to watch the competition live and seriously study the battle habits and characteristics of every heir. Lion Duke saw Qin Chuan wake up so early, so he smiled at Qin Chuan and said, "The first round will begin at 9 in the morning. It will be Xiang Di from the Elephant King tribe versus Long Xing from the Dragon King tribe. You don't have to watch Xiang Di. Just focus on Long Xing. I know what you're talking about, big cousin. I will focus on Long Xing." Qin Chuan chuckled and brought the breakfast to Lion Duke. He sat down and prepared to eat together. "So it's only 7. Why did you wake up 2 hours early?" Lion Duke looked confused. "If I didn't know better, I would have thought you were participating in the competition." When Qin Chuan heard what Lion Duke said, he explained as he ate his porridge. "I think that if I want to win a match, aside from being strong enough, the weather and location are also important factors. So, I plan to go to the arena in advance to observe the terrain. I don't want to be at a disadvantage because I'm not familiar with it." Lion Duke gave Qin Chuan a thumbs up and said, "If a young man like you can't succeed, it would be unreasonable." Qin Chuan accepted Lion Duke's compliment. He didn't think there was anything wrong with it. In his mind, hardworking people deserve to be praised. They deserve to be recognized. That way, more people would be willing to work hard. After breakfast, Qin Chuan went to the arena. He thought he would be the first to arrive, but he didn't expect someone to beat him to it. Qin Chuan was slightly surprised when he saw Hu Xiao standing on the training field. After some thought, he walked over and took the initiative to greet Hu Xiao hello. Hearing the voice behind him, Hu Xiao turned around and looked at Qin Chuan. He asked, "Are you talking to me?" Qin Chuan looked around and said with a smile, "There seems to be no one else here except for the two of us." Hu Xiao was silent for a moment. Then he said to Qin Chuan in a serious tone, "It seems that I was right to assume that you are my greatest enemy. Although we don't have a match today, we both chose to come early to observe the venue." Qin Chuan looked at Hu Xiao strangely and asked, "How did you know I was here to observe the field? What if I'm here for a walk?" "Boring," Hu Xiao replied indifferently to Qin Chuan, then turned his head and continued to observe the field. Qin Chuan didn't feel awkward when he saw that Hu Xiao wasn't interested in chatting with him. Instead, he continued to stand beside Hu Xiao, his eyes following Hu Xiao's gaze. "Hu Xiao, as the heir of the Tiger King division, have you ever thought about your future?" "Hu Xiao, do you feel happy being the heir? There must be a lot of people watching your every move every day, not letting go of your mistakes, right? Hu Xiao, why aren't you saying anything? Don't you feel bored?" In the face of Qin Chuan's continuous bombardment, Hu Xiao finally couldn't take it anymore. He said to Qin Chuan, "Why are you so talkative? Can you be a little quieter? Then answer my question, and I won't harass you anymore." Qin Chuan grinned and asked, "What do you think your future will be like?" Hu Xiao pursed his lips and replied, "To become the new king of the Tiger King division." Qin Chuan chuckled and said indifferently, "Perhaps others will think that your answer is not bad and that it's only natural. However, to me, your answer is really rubbish." Upon hearing Qin Chuan's words, Hu Xiao's expression suddenly turned cold. He said in a deep voice, "Are you provoking me?" No, I'm not provoking you. I'm just stating a fact. Compared to the vast and boundless universe, what is a mere new king of the Tiger King division?" Qin Chuan chuckled and pointed to the sky. He said loudly, "My journey will definitely be the sea of stars." Upon hearing Qin Chuan's words, Hu Xiao sneered. "Boring. What a pity." Qin Chuan looked at Hu Xiao with some regret. "I thought that with your talent, you would have the same big dreams as me. I didn't expect you to be a frog at the bottom of a well. You can't see how vast the outside world is." Hu Xiao asked in return, "Then tell me, how vast the outside world is. Do you know Zerg? As the heir of the Tiger King division, you should know a lot about Zerg. They are a race from a wider world. In terms of the level of civilization, they should be ahead of us. You should also know about the heir of Kunlun, right? In the future, maybe you will also become an heir of Kunlun and advance towards the stars. Which do you think is better, compared to the dream of going to a wider world and seeing more beautiful scenery, or the dream of becoming the new king of the Tiger King division? Upon hearing Qinchuan's words, Hu Shao said in a low voice, "Becoming an heir of Kunlun's field is already very difficult, not to mention becoming a real heir of Kunlun's field and stepping into the outside world. You don't know how difficult it is. No matter how difficult it is, it can always be done, right?" Qinchuan smiled. "If you don't even dare to think about it, then you will never be able to do it." Hu Shao couldn't help but fall silent. He had never thought about these things before. These things were not part of his plan at all. Seeing that Hu Shao was silent, Qinchuan reached out and patted Hu Zhao's shoulder. He smiled and said, "Think about it carefully. Don't waste your talent. So what if you lose? At most, you will lose your life. I would rather wander the stars until I die than live in a remote place and live a meaningless life." After saying this, Qinchuan turned and prepared to leave the martial arts arena and go back to sleep. Just then, Hu Shao suddenly called out to him, "Qinchuan, don't think that I will go easy on you just because you said this to me." Hearing Hu Zhao's words, Qinchuan laughed and replied, "Hu Shao, in terms of your ideals and ambitions, you are no match for me at all. I don't need you to go easy on me. Do you dare to make a bet with me?" Hu Shao frowned slightly and asked, "What do you want to bet on?" "Let's bet on whether the two of us win or lose." Qinchuan looked at Hu Shao. "If I lose, I will destroy my own cultivation and leave the demon realm without another word. I will never set foot in the demon realm for the rest of my life. If you lose, you will work for me for 10 years. How about that?" Hu Shao took a deep look at Qinchuan and asked, "You want to bet your cultivation for 10 years of mine?" "That's right. Do you dare to accept?" Qinchuan smiled confidently. "If you are afraid of losing, you can refuse me. I'll take this bet." Hu Shao said in a deep voice, "It's absolutely impossible for me to lose to you." Chapter 569. Ninth Demon, What's Your Dream? Yao Feng asked curiously as he looked at Ninth Demon, who was standing before him. Ninth Demon was silent for a while. Then he replied softly, "Your Majesty, I'm already past the age of pursuing my dream. I'm very satisfied with my current life." Yao Feng wasn't surprised to hear Ninth Demon's reply. Among the people he knew, Ninth Demon was probably the most obedient and casual person. If that wasn't the case, he wouldn't have stayed in the boring Heavenly Demon Temple for decades. The older generation like us are content with the status quo, but the younger generation can't do the same. To be honest, after what happened today, I'm a little disappointed in Hu Shao. As a young man, he says that his dream is to become the new Tiger King, but in reality, he just wants to become the king of the entire demon realm. At the end of the day, the most he can achieve in the future is to sit in my position. Ninth Demon said softly, "Your Majesty, not everyone can sit in the position of Demon King." Yao Feng looked at Ninth Demon meaningfully and asked, "Do you believe that Qinchuan will reject the position of Demon King?" Ninth Demon was silent again. After a while, he replied, "He has no reason to reject it. He has many reasons to reject it. He doesn't want to be a caged bird." Yao Feng's tone was complicated. Just like what he said, his journey is to explore the universe. He'd rather wander in the universe until he dies than be content with doing nothing. Yao Feng sighed. "Actually, I had the same idea back then. I also wanted to see how vast the outside world is. Unfortunately, I missed that opportunity. Your Majesty, it's never too late to take action," Ninth Demon said softly. "Your Majesty is in the prime of your life. You're full of energy. You could try many things." "I can't." Yao Feng shook his head. "Those guys still need me to stabilize the demon realm. They won't allow me to fight for the dream of my youth again." "All right, let's not talk about this anymore. The selection is about to start. Let's go and take a look." At 8:40 in the morning, the members of the 10 King divisions had already gathered at the training field to prepare for the upcoming preliminaries. Qinchuan, Lion Duke, and Ma Jiawen had already found a place to watch the battle. They were eating fruits and drinks, and they looked even more relaxed than the people from the 10 Imperial divisions. "You don't say, but the Sky Beast Temple's drinks are pretty good." Qinchuan sipped his drink and said to Lion Lord, How strong is this Xiang Di from Elephant King tribe? The performance of the Elephant King tribe has always been average among the 10 great king tribes. It is neither outstanding nor a hindrance. It can barely be considered average. From this, you can see Xiang Di's strength. Lion Duke looked at Qin Chuan and said, "This Xiang Di is no match for Long Xing. Long Xing should be able to take him down." Hearing that, Qin Chuan looked at Long Xing, who looked cold and arrogant. He asked Lion Duke, "How does this Long Xing compare to Hu Shao?" Lion Duke thought for a moment, then said to Qin Chuan, "Take Xiang Di as an example. If Long Xing can beat him within 100 moves, then Hu Shao can beat him within 40 moves, and he'll do it more easily." Qin Chuan raised his eyebrows and asked, "How many moves do you think I can beat Xiang Di?" "As for you," Lion Duke chuckled, "probably within 50 moves." Qin Chuan looked at Lion Duke strangely and asked, "You think I'm worse than Hu Shao?" "No, it's just that Hu Shao and Long Xing have fought for many years. They know each other very well, and they know what to do and what not to do." Lion Duke smiled and explained, "You are different. Long Xing is a stranger to you, and you don't know much about him. Even if you watch him fight, you won't know much about him. So, in the beginning of the fight, you'll have to spend a lot of time trying to understand your opponent. That's why you'll have to use more moves." Hearing Lion Duke's explanation, Qin Chuan nodded in agreement. Long Xing was the prince of the Dragon King tribe. Even if he was weaker than Qin Chuan, there was a limit. It was impossible for Qin Chuan to crush him. While Qin Chuan and Lion Duke were talking, Demon King's family of 3 arrived. "Greetings, my king." The people from the 10 king divisions all stood up and bowed respectfully to Yao Feng. After some simple greetings, Yao Feng let Yao Jiu announce the start of the selection. The first fight will be between the prince of the Elephant King tribe, Xiang Di, and the prince of the Dragon King tribe, Long Xing. Please get ready. The fight will begin in 3 minutes. In the martial arts practice field, Xiang Di and Long Xing stood opposite each other. Long Xing looked at Xiang Di's cold face, laughed, and asked, "Xiang Di, do you really want to compete with me? We've fought so many times, and you've never won." "Long Xing, if what you're saying is true, then let's stop fighting. Let's just watch Hu Shao and Qin Chuan fight." Xiang Di retorted, "Do you really think you can keep winning? I lost to you in the past, but that doesn't mean I'll lose to you now." As a crown prince of the Elephant King tribe, Xiang Di still had some self-respect. Although he often lost to Long Xing when they exchanged pointers, this did not mean that he was willing to lose forever. "I like it when you don't admit defeat." Long Xing laughed coldly. "Besides, if Qin Chuan meets me, he'll never make it to the finals." Among all his opponents, Long Xing wanted to defeat Qin Chuan the most, not only because of the conflict between him and Qin Chuan, but also because of Qin Chuan's true dragon bloodline. He wanted to prove to everyone that a dragon could defeat a true dragon. When the last grain of sand in the hourglass ran out, Xiang Di, who was in the middle of the martial arts field, suddenly moved. His demonic power surged and condensed into a huge elephant in the air, which then rushed towards Long Xing. Seeing this, Long Xing sneered and said, "Still the same old. No new ideas at all. Dragon roaming the world." Long Xing roared angrily. His demonic power surged and instantly turned into a pitch-black flood dragon, which directly pierced through the elephant. At this moment, the scattered demonic power suddenly gathered together and transformed into a giant palm that grabbed the dragon's tail. Then, it swung the dragon up and smashed it into Long Xing's face. Seeing this, Long Xing immediately dispersed his demon power and condensed it in the air, ready to resist the attack of the Iron Fist. At this time, Xiang Di's figure appeared in front of him without warning. He held a grayish-black giant hammer and smashed it hard on his head. "You'll definitely lose today." Chapter 570. At the spectator's stand of the Tiger King tribe. The Tiger King looked at the distracted Hu Shao and frowned. "Shower, what are you thinking about?" Hu Shao didn't seem to hear the Tiger King. He was still immersed in his own world. When the Tiger King called him a second time, he snapped back to reality. "Father, I'm thinking about something." Hu Shao looked at the Tiger King with a complicated expression. The Tiger King was confused. What is it that you're thinking about now? The Dragon Guild is one of the biggest threats to you. What you should be doing now is studying the Dragon Guild's progress and changes, not thinking about random things. Hearing the Tiger King's words, Hu Shao was silent for a while. After a while, he asked, "Father, do you really think the Dragon Guild is an opponent I should study?" The Tiger King was surprised. He realized that Hu Shao was a little strange today. He seemed to be very different from before. What happened? The Tiger King looked at Hu Shao. "You think the Dragon Guild is not your opponent? Father, have you seen what the world outside of the demon realm looks like?" Hu Shao whispered to the Tiger King with a complicated expression. "Have you ever seen the vast and boundless starry sky?" The Tiger King was stunned. He didn't expect Hu Shao to ask him such a question. He looked at Hu Shao for a long time before asking, "What are you trying to say?" Hu Shao looked at the Tiger King seriously and said with a complicated tone, "Father, my future should not be limited to the demon realm. I have enough talent, and I'm still young. I don't want my future to be the Tiger King of the Tiger King tribe, or the person sitting in that position. I should have a wider sky. I deserve it." The Tiger King realized that he couldn't understand his son. He had always wanted to nurture Hu Shao into the next Demon King. In the past, Hu Shao had always worked hard for this. But now, Hu Shao was suddenly not interested in all of this. A wider sky. The Tiger King looked at Hu Shao seriously. "You want to be an heir of Kunlun's field?" Hu Shao said honestly, "Becoming an heir of Kunlun's field might be my first step into the starry sky." "Do you know what you're saying?" The Tiger King said coldly. "You don't understand anything. What right do you have to say this? If I don't understand it now, I can slowly understand it in the future. But if I don't do these things now, I might not have the chance in this lifetime." Hu Shao looked at the Tiger King. "Father, please give me a chance. Let me do something that I want to do." "You mean to say that everything you're doing now is because I forced you to do it?" Tiger King's face suddenly turned cold. "You're already past the age of rebellion. Father, this isn't rebellion. It's a pursuit and ideal." Hu Shao said firmly, "I want to go to a wider world and pursue a greater future. Father, I don't want to be a frog sitting at the bottom of a well forever." "Enough. I don't want to hear you talk about these lofty ideals and ambitions. What you need to do now is to focus on winning the selection in front of you and becoming the prince consort." The Tiger King angrily said, "It's not too late to think about the future when the time comes." Seeing this, Hu Shao still wanted to say something, but the Tiger King waved his hand and directly imprisoned his body with supreme demonic power, forcing him to shut up and look at the martial arts arena. In the face of this situation, Hu Shao couldn't help but reveal an extremely sad expression. He really didn't understand why his father would oppose him so angrily. He just wanted to see the wider world. Was that wrong? The quarrel in the spectator area of the Tiger King division didn't attract too much attention. At this time, most people's attention was focused on the martial arts arena, watching the battle between Xiang Di and Long Xing attentively. Just like what Xiang Di said, no one was willing to lose for a lifetime. He could be said to have done his best today. He actually suppressed Long Xing slightly, making Long Xing feel like he couldn't withstand it. "Long Xing, is this all you've got? Are you using all your skills on your mouth?" Xiang Di was very happy. He had been fighting with Long Xing since he was a child. There had never been a day when he felt so comfortable and carefree like today. He wanted to ruthlessly return all the suffering he had suffered in the past to Long Xing today and let Long Xing taste the taste of failure. In the face of Xiang Di's suppression, Long Xing's face was very ugly. He really didn't expect Xiang Di to have improved so much during this period of time. He was completely caught off guard. Long Xing wasn't the only one who didn't expect this. The other members of the King Division were also very surprised to see Xiang Di's performance. Xiang Di was much braver than before today. It was as if he was a completely different person. Qin Chuan looked at Xiang Di's brave appearance and couldn't help but say to Lion Duke, "This guy looks as fierce as a god of war. Are you sure Long Xing is his opponent?" "I didn't see how they fought. I just made a judgment based on the basic situation of these people." Now, looking at everyone's shocked expression, it's obvious that no one expected this to happen. My analysis is that either Xiangdi has been hiding his strength before, or Xiangdi has recently obtained some opportunities and his strength has suddenly increased. Judging from Xiangdi's performance, it should be the latter. After hearing Lion Duke's explanation, Qingchuan felt that it was very reasonable. No one would become strong for no reason, just like him. If it wasn't for that opportunity, he might be working in a shop in the state capital of Qing now. Elephant form. Xiangdi shouted angrily and raised his hand to throw a punch. A giant elephant rushed out and slammed into Long Xing's body. Long Xing couldn't bear the heavy pressure and immediately turned back to his original form and flew into the sky. Roar! Long Xing roared and opened his mouth to spit out a ball of black water at Xiangdi. It turned into a big net in the air and enveloped Xiangdi. When Xiangdi saw the black curtain falling from the sky, he couldn't help but show a strong sense of fear. However, he didn't dodge. Instead, he took out a tender green branch and waved it gently at the black curtain. There was a flash of light, and the black curtain disappeared into nothingness. This is Elephant King Division's half-step Tao instrument, Xinya. Xinya has an excellent restraining effect on poisonous spells. It can be said that it is very effective against Long Xing. Lion Duke looked at the gloomy Black King Drake and said to Qingchuan, "You probably won't have the chance to take Long Xing's heartblood and give it to the Black King Drake. If Long Xing loses this battle, when he goes back, he won't be any better than having his heartblood taken by you." Qingchuan had a different opinion about this. He took a deep look at Long Xing, who was in the air, and then turned his gaze to Xiangdi. He said in a low voice, "Xiangdi can't take it anymore. His explosive period is over." Chapter 571. Qingchuan was not the only one who noticed the abnormality in Xiangdi's body. At this moment, everyone who was paying attention to Xiangdi could see that Xiangdi's ruddy face had turned pale in an instant. The expression on his face had also become extremely tired. It was as if he was a completely different person from the previously valiant Xiangdi. Seeing Xiangdi suddenly become weak, Ma Jiawen seemed to have thought of something. She whispered, "No wonder Xiangdi looked so fierce before. It turns out that he used a secret skill." Qingchuan asked Ma Jiawen curiously, "What kind of secret skill is that? It seems that the enhancement is not small." Ma Jiawen explained to Qingchuan in a low voice, "Some time ago, I heard that someone from the Elephant King tribe brought back a secret skill from the ruins of the universe. It can make the caster have a strong combat effectiveness in a short period of time. Because this secret skill is very common, I didn't take it seriously at that time. I also didn't think that Xiangdi became so fierce because of the secret skill. Now, seeing Xiangdi's performance, I suddenly thought of this matter. It seems that the explosive power of the secret skill is far stronger than ordinary secret skills, and the side effect seems to be greater. The side effect of the secret skill that Xiangdi used was indeed great. It almost made him lose his combat effectiveness completely. On the other hand, Long Xing was braver now. I really thought you became stronger. It turns out that you only relied on the secret skill." Long Xing sneered. "Now, what qualifications do you have to continue to show off in front of me?" Hearing Long Xing's words, Xiangdi's face could not help but show a touch of anger. He roared and waved a sprout at Long Xing unwillingly. Although he broke Long Xing's secret skills one after another, he could not stop Long Xing's physical body from approaching him. Finally, when Long Xing swept over with his tail, Xiangdi's body was immediately sent flying. He fell to the ground in an extremely embarrassing manner and coughed up a pool of blood. Long Xing did not chase after him. He turned back into his human form, looked at Xiangdi proudly, and said indifferently, "Even with the help of the secret skill, you are still not good enough." At this time, when Xiangdi, who had lost his combat effectiveness, heard Long Xing's taunt, he could not help but spit out 2 mouthfuls of blood. He was so angry that his eyes rolled back and he fainted on the spot. Upon seeing this scene, everyone watching the battle shook their heads and sighed. Not only was Xiangdi's strength not good, but even his temperament was also not very good. It was difficult for him to take on great responsibilities. The faces of the people of the Elephant King tribe were even more unsightly. Xiangdi, as the heir of the Elephant King tribe, represented the face of the Elephant King tribe. Not only had he lost, but he had also been ridiculed like this. The face of the Elephant King tribe had been completely lost. At this moment, Ninth Demon slowly walked to Long Xing's side and announced calmly, "The winner of the first selection is the Crown Prince of the Dragon King tribe, Long Xing." As Ninth Demon's voice fell, the crowd applauded enthusiastically. Long Xing looked around proudly and finally fixed his gaze on Qin Chuan. He stared coldly at Qin Chuan and said coldly, "You'd better pray that you don't meet me in the selection later. Otherwise, I'll let you die a horrible death." In the face of Long Xing's provocation in public, Qin Chuan's expression immediately became angry. He said angrily to Long Xing, "Brother Xiang and I hit it off at first sight. We're close friends. You hurt and humiliated him today. In the future, I'll pay you back 100-fold and avenge my brother Xiang." Upon hearing Qin Chuan's response, Long Xing couldn't help but be stunned. He stared at Qin Chuan with a confused expression. "You hit it off at first sight? You're close friends with Xiangdi? I've known Xiangdi for so many years. How come I don't know about this?" Not to mention Long Xing, even the people of the Elephant King tribe had not expected Qin Chuan to say such a thing. Looking at Qin Chuan's righteous look, those who didn't know would have been fooled by him. "Qin Chuan, when did the heir of the Elephant King tribe become friend with you?" The people of the Elephant King tribe looked at Qin Chuan and said speechlessly, "Don't try to make connections." Qin Chuan wasn't embarrassed at all when the Elephant King tribe tried to distance themselves from him. Instead, he said, "You don't have to say that. I know you're giving me a way out. You're afraid that I'll lose face if I lose to Long Xing. Don't worry, I won't let you down. I'll definitely defeat Long Xing and avenge Brother Xiang." The people of the Elephant King tribe couldn't help but roll their eyes. "Our heir really has nothing to do with you." Okay. We're not related. We're not related." Qin Chuan had a helpless look on his face. "I attacked Long Xing because of my personal reasons. Will that do? As long as I don't feel awkward, then you're the ones who feel awkward. You." The people of the Elephant King tribe were flustered and exasperated. They really couldn't clear their name, even if they jumped into the Yellow River. Seeing Qin Chuan and the Elephant King tribe being unreasonable, the others were waiting to see a good show. Today, Long Xing defeated Xiangdi Huan and made the Elephant King tribe lose face. When Qin Chuan really defeated Long Xing in the future, would the Elephant King tribe be happy or not? Just thinking about it made the expressions on the faces of the people of the Elephant King tribe would be very interesting. The second round of the selection, Peacock King tribe heir Kong Ming versus Ox King tribe heir Niu Gulu. After the small episode between Qin Chuan and the Elephant King tribe ended, the second round of the selection began. The Peacock King tribe and the Ox King tribe were ranked at the bottom of the 10 king tribes. This time, they came to participate in the selection to accompany the Crown Prince. Therefore, there was no hostility between Kong Ming and Niu Gulu. They were as relaxed as when they were exchanging pointers. "Brother Niu, this is a new move I learned recently. It's called Wing Storm. Watch carefully." After Kong Ming introduced the name of his move to Niu Gulu, he immediately used his demonic power to condense a green feather in front of him. Then it divided into 2 and then into 4. In the blink of an eye, it turned into thousands of feathers, covering the sky and covering the sun. It was an extremely spectacular sight. Seeing this, Niu Gulu immediately roared, "Invincible Divine Shield." Before he could finish speaking, a barbarian bull appeared in front of Niu Gulu, after which it transformed into a circular shield that blocked in front of him. When the feathers that filled the sky descended, they all accurately attacked the shield, causing clear and crisp collision sounds to ring out. However, they were unable to cause even the slightest bit of damage to the shield. After the feathers were all recorded, Kong Ming sighed and said, "Brother Niu's invincible divine shield is really worthy of being called a divine defensive skill. I reckon only the Black Tortoise tribe's mysterious heavy armor can be compared to it." Brother Kong praises me too much. This invincible divine shield of mine was born out of the mysterious heavy armor. Compared to the real mysterious heavy armor, it's still lacking by a lot. Neo Gulu smiled foolishly. If Brother Kong didn't show mercy and didn't attack me with all your strength, I wouldn't have been able to block this winged storm so easily. Kong Ming laughed heartily. Huh. Then let's continue. Neo Gulu nodded. Come, let's continue. As they spoke, the two of them once again began to exchange pointers, where you attack and I defend. Chapter 572. In the spectator area, Qin Chuan was dumbfounded as he watched Kong Ming and Neo Gulu exchange pointers. He couldn't help but ask Ma Jiawen, "What's going on with these two guys? Is this a competition or a joke?" Ma Jiawen had a helpless look on her face as she said to Qin Chuan, "The Peacock King tribe and the Ox King tribe are ranked at the bottom of the 10 king tribes. They're the two king tribes with the least competition. Therefore, their relationship is extremely good and they get along well. Kong Ming and Neo Gulu are famous for their good tempers. It's basically impossible to make them fight." Hearing Ma Jiawen's explanation, Qin Chuan grinned. "I didn't think that there would be such a person among the crown princes of the 10 king tribes. It's not that they don't want to fight, but they know that they can't win. So, they just don't want to fight." Lion Duke laughed and said to Qin Chuan, "Don't look down on them just because the other king tribes look down on them now. In the future, when it comes to achievements, these two people will definitely be ranked in the top 5 among the crown princes of the 10 king tribes." "Do you believe it?" Qin Chuan was puzzled when he heard this and asked, "Why do you say that? Have you heard of this saying? Not fighting is fighting." Lion Duke said meaningfully, "Sometimes fighting is not necessarily better than not fighting." Qin Chuan looked pensive as he glanced at Lion Duke. Then, he turned his gaze back to the arena. At this time, with the intervention of the 9th demon, the battle between Kong Ming and Neo Gulu was about to come to an end. The outcome was about to be decided. It was fortunate that the 9th demon had intervened. Otherwise, the two of them would have fought until the next morning. In the end, Kong Ming gave Neo Gulu the victory. The silly Neo Gulu felt sorry for Kong Ming. The two of them agreed to wait until the end of the selection to have a drink together. Of course, Neo Gulu would be the one to treat. Looking at Kong Ming and Neo Gulu walking out of the training field hand in hand, the people of the Peacock King tribe and the Ox King tribe were all laughing. The other people of the King tribe were yawning nonstop, as if they were about to fall asleep at any time. Head steward Jiao Jiao appeared once again and announced loudly to the crowd, "The selection in the morning has ended. There will be another match in the afternoon. The crown prince of the Fox King tribe, Shui, will face the crown prince of the Lion King tribe, Shirkong. Everyone can disperse now. Just come back before 3 p.m. Everyone got up and left. Qin Chuan curiously asked Lion Baron, "How strong is this Lion Kong?" "I don't know." Lion Duke shook his head. "You should ask the little girl from the Pegasus tribe." Qin Chuan turned to look at Ma Jiawen and asked, "Between Shirkong and Shueha, who is stronger?" "The strength of the two of them should be about the same," Ma Jiawen said to Qin Chuan. "If we have to say who is stronger, it should be Shuehi. But there's a limit to how strong he is." Qin Chuan asked with some doubt, "The Demon Empress is from the Fox King tribe. Yao Rao and the Crown Prince of the Fox King tribe should be related, right? Can close relatives also participate in the selection?" Although Shuehi is participating in the selection, but his probability of winning is almost 0, so it doesn't matter. Ma Jiawen said with a calm face, "You don't think that Shuehi could defeat you or Hu Xiao, do you? What you said seems to be a bit reasonable." Qin Chuan nodded. As long as he can't win, then there is no other problem. After the noon break, everyone once again came to the martial arts arena in high spirits. They were ready to watch the last match of the day. It was the Crown Prince of the Fox King tribe, Shuehi, against the Crown Prince of the Lion King tribe, Shirkong. Shuehi was wearing white clothes, and his hair was also snow white in color. It seemed that his temperament was slightly feminine. This was not because of Shuehi, but because all the men of the Fox King tribe were like this. When Qin Chuan saw Shuehi for the first time, he felt that something was not quite right, but he couldn't put his finger on it. The third match of the selection, the Crown Prince of the Fox King tribe, Shwehi, against the Crown Prince of the Lion King tribe, Shirkong. As the voice of the ninth demon fell, Shirkong, who was in the middle of the martial arts arena, immediately opened his mouth and roared at Shwehi. He wanted to use the lion's roar technique to gain the upper hand and intimidate Shwehi. However, Shwehi didn't let Shirkong's scheme succeed. When the lion's roar arrived in front of him, the jade pendant hanging on his waist suddenly lit up with a burst of gentle radiance, which dissolved the lion's roar. Seeing this scene, Ma Jiawen explained to Qin Chuan, "This is the Fox King's jade that only the Crown Prince of the Fox King tribe is qualified to wear. It can dissolve all negative effects." Qin Chuan was somewhat curious after hearing this, and asked, "This Fox King's jade can dissolve all negative effects? Isn't that a little too broad?" You can think of this Fox King's jade as calming the mind. It's mainly used to restrain inner demons and negative effects on the spiritual level, Ma Jiawen explained to Qin Chuan. The Fox King's jade is ineffective against offensive attacks. When Qin Chuan heard Ma Jiawen's explanation, he couldn't help but sigh. These crown princes of the Fox King tribe are living too comfortably. Almost every one of them has 1 or 2 good treasures. I really can't help but want to rob them. When she heard Qin Chuan's words, Ma Jiawen chuckled and said, "Don't the disciples of the human clans and sects have any good treasures?" "That's true." Qin Chuan smiled. "I can't blame you for being too rich. I can only blame myself for being too poor." Just as Qin Chuan and Ma Jiawen were talking, the battle in the martial art practice field had already passed the probing stage and entered the official stage. Shirkong was the main attacker, and Shue, he was the main defender. Shirkong's attacks were extremely aggressive, and his fighting style was bold and powerful. On the other hand, Shuehi's defense was strict and cautious. It could be said that it was watertight. For a while, no one could do anything to the other. The situation was in a stalemate. Seeing this, Qin Chuan suddenly frowned slightly and asked Ma Jiawen, "Don't you think Shuehi is a little familiar?" Ma Jiawen was stunned for a moment before she replied, "Shuehi and I have known each other for many years. We often see each other, so of course we are familiar with him." Qin Chuan shook his head and said, "It's not that kind of familiarity. I don't know why I feel like I've seen Shuehi somewhere before. His fighting style is particularly familiar to me, but I can't remember where I've seen it for the time being." Ma Jiawen was a little surprised. "As far as I know, Shuehi has never left the demon realm. You shouldn't have had the chance to meet him before, right? This is also what I'm puzzled about." Qin Chuan looked at Shuehi, who was waiting for an opportunity to counterattack Shirkong, and said to Ma Jiawen, "Maybe I remembered wrongly." Just as Ma Jiawen was about to say something, the situation in the training ground suddenly reversed. Shuehi, who had been suppressed by Shirkong all this time, suddenly erupted and transformed into a snow-white, three-tailed fox that pounced on Shirkong. With the support of demonic power, Shuehi's 3 huge tails nimbly wrapped around Shirkong's body, instantly binding him and making him unable to move. Chapter 573. The moment Shuehi launched his attack, Shirkong sensed that something was amiss and wanted to counterattack. However, at that moment, he suddenly lost control of his body, and his thoughts became stiff. By the time he recovered, he was already under Shuehi's control. Was that an illusion? Shirkong's expression was solemn. That feeling earlier must have been due to an illusion. Otherwise, his reaction would not have been so slow. There's no need to guess. You were under my illusion just now, so you couldn't react properly. Shuehi looked at Shirkong and said calmly, "Now that you're completely under my control, I can kill you at any time. So admit defeat." As a 3-tailed fox, Shuehi's strongest point was his 3 tails. Now that Shirkong was bound by his tails, there was no way he could break free. It was too late for him to revert to his original form. In the past, you always had a premonition when you used your illusion. Why did you do it so suddenly this time? Shirkong did not struggle. Instead, he humbly asked Shuehi for advice. Shuehi chuckled and said, "People change. In the past, my illusion did have some flaws, but now I've made up for those flaws. So, you didn't lose unjustly. After hearing Shui He's explanation, a look of understanding appeared on Shikong's face. He then said, "Although I know it's very difficult to beat you, I still want to try again." Before he could finish his sentence, Shikong let out a furious roar. His body suddenly swelled and turned into a brown lion. At the same time, Shui's body also suddenly expanded. His tail became as thick as a bucket and tightly wrapped around Shikong's body. No matter how hard Shikong struggled, he could not break free from the tail's shackles. After struggling for a long time, Shikong finally chose to give up. With his strength, he could only break free from the tail's shackles if he was more than 30% stronger than Shui. However, the gap between him and Shui was too small. "I admit defeat." Shikong looked helpless. "I'm no match for you." Hearing that Shikong had admitted defeat, Shui let go of his tail and returned his freedom to Shikong. After Shikong left the arena dejectedly, Jiao Jiao announced that the winner of the selection was the crown prince of the Fox King tribe, Shui. Although everyone could accept this result, they were still a little surprised. Snow River's victory had been a little too easy. Lion Kong had fallen into Snow River's rhythm and did not put up any decent resistance at all. Shui politely bowed to everyone and then walked towards the spectator stand where the Fox King tribe was. Looking at Shui's back, Qin could not help but frown slightly. He did not know if it was an illusion, but he felt that Shui had deliberately looked at him just now. "Zhaoan, do you have any information on Snow River? I want to take a look." Qin turned to look at Ma Zhaoan. The more detailed, the better. Ma Zhaoan thought that Qin felt that Snow River was a strong opponent and wanted to study Snow River. She did not ask and simply said, "I will go back and organize it and send it to you. I will try to be as detailed as possible." Qin nodded and said, "Thank you. Everyone, today's selection is over. The 2 remaining matches will be held tomorrow. The Crown Prince of the Whale King tribe, Jingran, will face the Crown Prince of the Bear King tribe, Xiongda, and the Crown Prince of the Tiger King tribe, Hu Xiao, will face the Crown Prince of the Wolf King tribe, Lang Yu. Less than an hour after the selection was over, Ma Zhaoan sent the information on Snow River to Qin. Qin picked up the information and looked at it carefully. He did not miss a single word. Seeing Qin so serious, Lion King asked curiously, "You are so serious about studying your opponent. If I didn't know better, I would have thought that you were studying Hu Xiao." Hearing Lion Duke's words, Qin raised his head and looked at Lion Duke. He said seriously, "Big cousin, if I say that I have the confidence to defeat Hu Xiao, but not Shui, would you believe me?" Qin's face turned serious, and he asked Qin, "What did you find out about Snow River?" "I'm not sure yet. I just have some suspicions. That is why I wanted to look at Snow River's past." Qin pursed his lips and said to Lion King, "If I find out anything, I will tell you immediately." Seeing Qin being so serious, Lion King nodded and said to Qin, "I will keep an eye on Fox King for you." Fox King Tribe Demon King Shui Gui sat on a chair and looked at Shui, who was sitting beside him. He smiled and said to Shui in a satisfied tone, "Today, Crown Prince defeated Shikong and won glory for our Fox King tribe." In the face of returning Snow's praise, Shui smiled faintly and said, "Aunt, you flatter me. I just did what I had to do. You are not arrogant." "Very good." Returning Snow was very happy. In the past, I always envied Tiger King Division for having such an outstanding prince like Hu Xiao. Now, I don't need to envy them because our prince is also very outstanding, not worse than anyone else. Shui just smiled and didn't say anything. If Shui Gui was happy, then let Shui Gui say a few more words. "Your Highness, I originally didn't have any expectations for you to become the prince consort, but your performance today has given me a glimmer of hope. If you were to face Hu Xiao and Qin, what are your chances of winning?" Shui Gui looked at Snow River with bright eyes. "As long as you can defeat them and become the winner, your bloodline won't be a problem." Snow River hesitated for a moment before replying. "I've fought Hu Xiao before. Now that he's gone back to his roots, he's improved tremendously. Even if I've improved as well, I'd say I have a 40% chance of winning." As for Qin Chuan, I have never fought him before. We will only know who will win after we fight. You have a 40% chance of winning against Hu Shao. Returning Snow narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice, if that's the case, then the Crown Prince really has a chance of winning. Snow River looked at Shui Gui and asked, Auntie, you want me to become the prince's son-in-law? Not just the prince's son-in-law. Shui Gui looked deeply at Snow River. Snow Autumn is now the Demon Empress. If you can become the prince's son-in-law, with our Fox King tribe's support and Snow Autumn's influence on the Demon King, you will become the new Demon King in 100 years. Our Fox King tribe will become the Fox Emperor tribe. Recreating the glory of the nine-tailed celestial fox is not a dream. Snow River, the future of our Fox King tribe depends on you. Chapter 574. It wasn't until late at night that Qin Chuan finished reading all of Shui He's information. Looking at the thick stack of information in his hands, Qin Chuan couldn't help but fall into deep thought. According to the records, Shui He was an easygoing person with a feminine temperament and a masculine personality. Judging from Shui He's performance today, he was indeed an easygoing person with a feminine temperament and a decisive and masculine personality. His performance today was almost exactly the same as in the past. It could be said that there was no problem at all. Am I overthinking things? Qin Chuan frowned. Shui He's performance is normal. Am I the one who's not normal? Am I being paranoid again? Just as Qin Chuan was beginning to doubt himself, Lion King suddenly appeared in front of him. He looked at him with confusion and asked, Are you still researching Shui He in the middle of the night? Qin Chuan smiled bitterly and said, The research is over. Maybe I'm overthinking things. From the information, Shui He's performance is completely normal. There's nothing wrong with him. When Lion King heard Qin Chuan, he reached out and took the information from Qin Chuan. After looking through it, he asked Qin Chuan, You've only seen Shui He a few times, and you've already come to this conclusion? Qin Chuan asked, Did you discover something new? Lion King shook his head and said, I didn't discover anything new, but I do know one thing, and that is a person who doesn't seem to have any problems. That's the biggest problem. Qin Chuan was stunned, and he asked, What do you mean? Let's take you as an example. From your perspective, shouldn't you not participate in the selection? Shouldn't you only face your relationship problems after you've completed the things in your heart? But what did you do in reality? Lion King laughed and said, So, a person's performance in the present and in the past will not be the same. There will always be differences. Do you understand? Qin Chuan nodded as if he understood. In everyone's perception, he should be a rational person. However, none of the things he had done recently were rational. This did not mean that he was not a rational person. It was just that under certain circumstances, his current performance would be different from the past. Look at Shui He. His performance is almost like a straight line. There are no fluctuations or changes. Do you think that's normal? Lion King looked at Qin Chuan. Don't you think he's like an actor? Is he trying to blend himself into a character? Hearing this, Lion King's words made Qin Chuan's face. The next morning, Qin Chu went to look for Ma Jiawen. Ma Jiawen was eating breakfast when she saw Qin Chuan. She asked in surprise, Why are you here so early? Why are you looking for me? Qin Chuan placed the information that he had asked Ma Jiawen to gather on the table and asked her, Who did you get to gather this information? Has there been any revision or change to this information? Hearing Qin Chuan's question, Ma Jiawen was stunned. Then she said, I know who collected this information, but I don't know anything else. Who collected it? Can I see him? I have a lot of questions to ask him. Qin Chuan looked at Ma Jiawen seriously and said, This is very important. Seeing Qin Chuan's serious face, Ma Jiawen immediately said, The person who gave me this information is Princess Rao. When Qin Chuan heard this, he was stunned for a moment and asked in surprise, Alluring, Yes, is Princess Rao. Ma Jiawen nodded her head and said, You also know, Princess Rao asked me to stay by your side and help you as much as possible. If you have something to ask me, of course I will tell Princess Rao. Otherwise, with my ability in Heavenly Beast Temple, Do you think I can help you find such detailed information about Xiuhe in such a short time? After hearing Ma Jiaowen's explanation, Qin Chuan immediately asked, "Then can you take me to see Yao Rao now?" "I can't, but I can inform Princess Rao. Maybe she will find a way to see us." Ma Jiaowen said to Qin Chuan, "You can wait here for a while." "Okay." Qin Chuan nodded his head. "Hurry up and contact Yao Rao." Less than half an hour after Ma Jiaowen contacted Yao Rao arrived at Ma Jiaowen's residence. When she saw Qin Chuan, Yao Rao somewhat doubtfully asked, "Why are you so concerned about Xiuhe? I think there's a problem with this person." Qin Chuan looked at Yao Rao with solemn gaze and asked, "Where did you get this information? Was it changed?" Yao Rao replied, "I got this information from Octagon Guard. As for whether it was changed or not, I don't know." "So it is Octagon Guard." Ma Jiaowen was somewhat surprised. No wonder this information is so comprehensive. Qin Chuan somewhat doubtfully asked, "What is Octagon Guard?" Octagon Guard is an intelligence organization subordinate to Heavenly Beast Temple. It is specialized in serving Demon Emperor. The entire demon world is under the surveillance of Octagon Guard. Even your Star Dragon Federation has many Octagon Guards lurking there. Yao Rao explained to Qin Chuan. In short, there's nothing in Demon World that Octagon Guard doesn't know. Qin Chuan clearly nodded his head, then asked Yao Rao, "Then can you help me ask the people of Octagon Guard whether this information was changed or leaked?" "Okay, wait a moment." While speaking, Yao Rao took out a jade plate, then poured her demon power into it. Soon a figure shrouded in a black cloak appeared on the jade plate. Octagon Guard Si Ba pays respect to Princess Rao. No need for formalities. Yao Rao asked Si Ba, "I ask you, yesterday you gave me the information of Shuehe. Was it changed or leaked?" Having heard the question, Si Ba immediately replied, "Reporting to Princess Rao, the information of Fox King Clan heir Shui, he has been changed 7 times, and there has never been a case of leak." "Impossible." Qin Chuan almost subconsciously interrupted. "You must have leaked this information before." Seeing Qin Chuan so sure, Yao Rao couldn't help but somewhat doubtfully asked, "How can you be so sure?" Qin Chuan deeply looked at Yao Rao, then said, "Because there is a problem with Shuehe, so the information must have been leaked." Hearing Qin Chuan, Si Ba was silent for a moment, then said, "Princess Rao, Octagon Guard's Deputy Commander Jiu Lu, had come in contact with Shuehe. If the information was leaked, then it must be related to Jiu Lu." Yao Rao immediately asked, "Then where is Jiu Lu?" Jiu Lu was sent to Border Mountain to perform a mission some time ago, and still hasn't returned. Si Ba said, "As for the specific situation, forgive subordinate for not disclosing." Chapter 575. I want to take a look at the information of Snow River. I want all of it, including those that have been modified before. Qin Chuan looked at Si Ba, who was shrouded in black cloak, and said in heavy voice, "This is very important. You must find it for me. Moreover, you better inform the highest commander of your 8 direction guards. Let him properly investigate that 98. I dare to bet there's definitely a problem with him." Seeing Qin Chuan solemnly vowed, Si Ba indifferently shook her head and said, "Leaking information is a capital offense in 8 direction guards. I can't agree to your request. Si Ba, as princess, I order you to obey the arrangement of Qin Chuan. If there is any problem, I will bear the responsibility." Yao Rao suddenly interrupted, then said in serious tone, "Execute immediately." Facing the coercive order of Yao Rao, Si Ba was unable to refuse, so she could only helplessly agree. "I know. I will find the information you need as soon as possible. In addition, I will also contact Great Commander and let Great Commander investigate 98. After the conversation ended, Yao Rao put away the jade plate. Then, curiously looking at Qin Chuan, she asked, "What did you find? Why must you investigate Snow River?" Qin Chuan deeply looked at Yao Rao and said, "Now, I still can't say. Wait until I see the unmodified information. Then I can come to a conclusion and then tell you the answer. But I can tell you clearly, I really hope my suspicion is false." Seeing Qin Chuan was unwilling to say, Yao Rao also didn't ask. "Just like this, Three people sat in front of the dining table and thought about their own matters. In less than half an hour, Si-Ba came with the information. Princess Yaorao, this is all the information of Snow River that you want. The modified version is here. Si-Ba said to Yaorao. In addition, I have already reported the matter of 98 to Great Commander. Great Commander knew it was your idea, so he has already sent people to investigate. You have worked hard. Yaorao took the information from the hand of Si-Ba, then handed it over to Qin Chuan, then said to Qin Chuan, "Take a look." Qin Chuan also didn't refuse. He directly reached out his hand and took the information and began to read it. After a while, he saw many problems, so, with serious expression, he said to Yaorao, "There is great discrepancy between this information and the final version I have read before." Having heard what was said, Yaorao immediately asked, "So what did you see?" Qin Chuan looked at Yaorao with dignified expression and said in deep voice, "Shui, he must have seen the final version of the information. He is deliberately imitating the Shui he written in the information, acting as Shui he." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Yaorao didn't understand, but Si-Ba had already reacted and coldly said, "You are saying that someone has seized Shueha's body and is acting as Shueha?" Possession. Hearing Si-Ba, Yaorao was greatly surprised and asked Qin Chuan, "Is that what you mean? How sure are you?" Qin Chuan said in deep voice, "This shouldn't be possession. If it is possession, then the other party should have seized Shueha's memory at the same time, so there is no need to look up this information to play the role. Perhaps Shueha is still alive, but his consciousness is in deep sleep, and his body is being controlled by another person. Do you understand what I'm saying?" Si-Ba deeply looked at Qin Chuan and asked, "So, who are you suspecting?" Qin Chuan pursed his lips and said with uncertain tone, "Yesterday, when I was watching the match between Shueha and Shikong, I always felt that Shueha's fighting style and habits were somewhat familiar. After thinking about it, Shueha's fighting style and habits were somewhat similar to Zerg we encountered in Unfettered Secret Realm." Zerg. Hearing Qin Chuan, Si-Ba immediately turned pale with fright and asked, "Are you sure?" "I don't dare to be sure. That's why I need to investigate. As long as your commander is fast enough, he'll be able to find out whether there is a problem with 98. Then we will know whether there is a problem with Shueha or not." Qin Chuan looked at Si-Ba and said, "You must act fast if Shueha and 98 are really Zerg. Then the problem will be big." Si-Ba's complexion was uncertain, and after a long time, he said, "I have checked before. The final version of Shueha's information was written by 98. Hearing this, everyone's complexion slightly changed, so there really is a problem between 98 and Shueha. At this time, the jade plate on Si-Ba's waist suddenly lit up. He took it down and took a glance, and his complexion changed again and coldly said to everyone, "Commander replied me. 98 lost contact." Hearing Si-Ba's words, Qin Chuan let out a sigh and said to everyone, "So, there really is a problem with Shueha. Damn it, what do these Zerg want to do?" Yaorao was extremely angry. "I will ask Father Emperor to capture Shueha. Don't worry." Qin Chuan frowned and said, "We can't be sure whether the person controlling Shueha is Zerg or not. And we also can't be sure how many people they are hiding. If we touch Shueha now, it will make the other Zerg more vigilant, and they will be careful not to expose themselves. Then we will be in a passive position again. So I suggest that we don't make a move on Shueha for now, and pretend that we don't know anything, and carefully comb through the network around Shueha, and look for other suspicious people." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Si-Ba asked, "Then what if these Zerg are plotting something? This is not something I should think about. There is such a big mistake in your octagon guards. Shouldn't you reflect on it?" Qin Chuan glanced at Si-Ba. "Report to Shifter Emperor. Let Shifter Emperor make the decision." Back Palace. Yao Feng looked deeply at the report in his hand, and after a long time, he raised his head and looked at Yaorao, who was standing in front of him, and asked, "Was this discovered by Qin Chuan?" Yaorao nodded her head and said, "It was discovered by Qin Chuan. If it wasn't for him reminding us, perhaps this time we would have suffered a big loss." Seeing Yaorao wanted to take credit for Qin Chuan, Yao Feng indifferently said, Father Emperor already knows about this matter. Father Emperor will arrange what should be done. You don't need to worry about this matter." Hearing this, Yao Rao immediately asked, "Father Emperor, shouldn't you give some reward to the person who discovered this matter? Isn't this something that Qin Chuan should do?" Yao Feng indifferently looked at Yao Rao and said, "What reward do you want? What do you mean by something that Qin Chuan should do?" Yao Rao refused to accept this. "Father Emperor, how can you do this?" Yao Feng deeply looked at Yao Rao and asked, "Don't tell me that a family member helping a family member needs a reward. How can a family member?" Yao Rao suddenly stopped speaking. Then looking at Yao Feng with extremely pleasantly surprised eyes, she asked, "Father Emperor, do you mean that you agree to the matter between me and Qin Chuan?" Father Emperor has seen his performance, but if he wants to become the son-in-law, he still needs to stand out in this election. Yao Feng said, "As long as he can win the final victory, Father Emperor will naturally not obstruct him." Chapter 576. What? Yao Rao said reluctantly. "If Qin Chuan wins, he should be the emperor's son-in-law." "Father, are you going to go back on your words?" Seeing that Yao Rao was unhappy, Yao Feng laughed. "Father will not go back on his words. How about this? If Qin Chuan wins, then Father will give Qin Chuan a great opportunity. What do you think? Then it's a deal." Yao Rao agreed happily. "I'm going to tell this good news to Qin Chuan now." Looking at Yao Rao's back, Yao Feng's face gradually turned gloomy. He glanced at Yao Rao and said, "Go and tell number 1 to try his best to find Jiulu. If she's alive, I want to see her. If she's dead, I want to see her corpse. Even if she's turned into ashes, I want him to find her. Also, ask him to clean up the internal department. I'll give him 3 days to find the mole in the Octagon Guards and kill them all." Yao Jiu nodded and said yes. After Yao Jiu left, Snow Autumn slowly walked out from behind. She looked at Yao Feng's pale face and said softly, "Your Majesty, is this really related to Zerg?" Yao Feng shook his head and said, "I'm not sure yet. However, there's definitely something wrong with Shuehe and Jiulu." Snow Autumn said worriedly, "I don't know how long Shuehe has been hiding. If it wasn't for Qin Chuan, I don't know how long we would have to wait to find out about this problem." Hearing Snow Autumn mention Qin Chuan, Yao Feng nodded slightly and said, "Qin Chuan is indeed a very careful person. I'm surprised that he was able to find out about Shuehe's problem so quickly. It seems like that thing should be given to him." Hearing this, Snow Chio looked at Yao Feng in surprise and asked, "Have you decided?" Yao Feng nodded again. "I've had that thing for almost 100 years. However, I've never been able to open it. It seems like that thing is not meant to be with me. Giving it to Qin Chuan can be considered as returning it to its rightful owner." The competition in the morning went on as usual. Qin Chuan and the others acted as if nothing had happened. Shuehe didn't notice anything. He thought that he had covered it very well. However, he didn't know that he was already a turtle in a jar. Qin Chuan looked at the Whale King tribe's crown Prince Jing Ran and Bear King tribe's Prince Xiong who were fighting in the arena. But he was distracted. While he was distracted, he reminded, I don't scare yourself," Qin Chuan helplessly said to Ma Jiawen. "Focus on the competition." Ma Jiawen nodded. She looked at Shuehe for the last time. Thinking of what Qin Chuan said earlier, she blushed. She quickly looked away. On the other side, Shui Gui smiled and whispered to Shui, he who was sitting next to him, "Prince, did you notice? Holy Maiden Ma Jiawen has been secretly looking at you. She's blushing." Shui nodded and said, "I noticed. It seems that your performance yesterday must have left a deep impression on the saintess of the Heavenly Horse tribe, so much so that she couldn't help but sneak peeks at you." Snow returned chuckled. "If you don't have the chance to become the prince consort, then the Holy Maiden is a good choice." The status of the Heavenly Horse tribe in the demon realm was equivalent to that of the 10 great king tribes. Ma Jiawen's identity as the saintess was enough to match Shui. "Auntie," Shuehe whispered back, "don't force yourself when it comes to love. Just leave it to fate." You're right. Snow Return nodded. Then let's do it this way. At this point, the competition has reached a critical stage. The Bear Clan's heir, Shionda, is using his powerful body to suppress the Whale Clan's heir. He doesn't give the latter a chance to fight back. It seems that in this clash between the land and the sea, the land side has the upper hand. Qin Chuan's side. This is the heir of the Whale King clan. If it were any other clan, they would have been beaten to a pulp by this Bear King clan heir. The Bear King tribe has always been known for their powerful physical strength. They rarely use their demon power in battle and have always used their physical strength to crush their opponents. Even if Hu Xiao encountered a Xionda, he wouldn't fight a Xionda head-on. From this, you can see how powerful a Xionda is. Ma Jiawen smiled and explained to Qin Chuan. But Jing Ran's strength is not weak either. It's just that this is the martial arts arena. Xionda has the geographical advantage. If it's the sea, two Xionda may not be his opponent. After the two of them fight, it's time for the highlight. Qin Chuan narrowed his eyes. Hu Xiao against Lang Yu. Does Lang Yu have a chance of winning? The Wolf King clan's heir, Lang Yu, has always been known for his ferocity and madness. He's a complete battle maniac. He doesn't care about anything when he fights. It's either you die or I live. Few people can defeat him through a frontal attack, but Hu Xiao is an exception. In my memory, Lang Yu has never won against Hu Xiao. Ma Jiawen was very confident. As long as Hu Xiao performs normally, Lang Yu can't win even if he performs exceptionally. While Qin Chuan and Ma Jiawen were talking, Demon 9 had already announced that Xionda had won the selection competition. Immediately after, it was the duel between the Crown Prince of the Tiger King tribe, Hu Xiao, and the Crown Prince of the Wolf King tribe, Lang Yu. In the Tiger King clan's spectator area, the Tiger King looked at the expressionless Hu Xiao and said in a deep voice, "You must win this battle. Do you understand?" Hu Xiao pursed his lips and said in a low voice, "I know. I will win." The Tiger King saw that Hu Xiao was not in high spirits. His face suddenly turned cold. He asked, "Are you still thinking about those illusory things? You must be down to earth." Hu Xiao slowly stood up and walked toward the martial arts arena. With his back to the Tiger King, he said in a low voice, "How do you know it's illusory if you haven't tried?" On the other side, the Wolf King clan did not care about the outcome of this selection. Lang Yu had never been Hu Xiao's opponent. It was not a loss if he lost. The last match of the first round of the selection, the Tiger King clan's heir, Hu Xiao, versus the Wolf King clan's heir, Lang Yu. Demon 9 left the martial arts arena after announcing the start of the competition. He left the arena to Hu Xiao and Lang Yu. Lang Yu looked at Hu Xiao with a fanatical gaze and grinned. "The last time we fought was a year ago. It's been a long time. I missed the time when I fought with you." Hu Xiao looked at Lang Yu calmly and said indifferently, "There's nothing to miss about boring things." Chapter 577. You're still as arrogant as ever. Lang Yu sneered. He didn't care about Hu Xiao's attitude. He never cared about other people's opinions. As long as he was happy, it was enough. "Oh!" Lang Yu howled to the sky, and then his figure suddenly flashed. In an instant, he was close to Hu Xiao. He raised his hand and slapped towards Hu Xiao's face. The attack was extremely fierce. "Pa!" Before Lang Yu's hand could get close to Hu Xiao raised his hand and grabbed his wrist. The phantom wolf claw formed by demon power also collapsed in an instant. At the same time, Hu Xiao suddenly exerted force in his hand. He grabbed Lang Yu's wrist and threw Lang Yu to the floor. The powerful force made Lang Yu unable to break free. He could only let Hu Xiao smash him to the ground. Bang! Lang Yu's body hit the floor heavily, making a dull sound. Lang Yu was not angry. Instead, he laughed and shouted, "Refreshing, really refreshing." Seeing that Lang Yu was beaten up by Hu Xiao, Qin Chuan couldn't help but look at Lang Yu strangely. He couldn't help but ask Ma Jiawen, "Does this guy have masochistic tendencies? I can't believe you can still laugh." Ma Jiawen smiled and said to Qin Chuan, "People who are familiar with Lang Yu know that the more painful it is for him to be beaten, the better he feels and the stronger his fighting strength. He is indeed a masochist. Among us, only Hu Shao can abuse him. It's difficult for others to suppress him. Hearing Ma Jiaowen's explanation, Qin Chuan didn't know what to say. In his opinion, Lang Yu is simply a pervert. Lang Yu is indeed a pervert. After being smashed to the floor by Hu Shao, he not only didn't struggle, but also said to Hu Shao, "Quick, continue. Hit me." In the face of Lang Yu's strange request, Hu Shao was very cooperative and satisfied him. He smashed him on the floor like garbage. The rumbling sounds continued, but the harder Hu Shao smashed him, the more rampant Lang Yu's laughter was. The members of the 10 King tribes seemed to be used to this and did not find it strange. Even the members of the Wolf King tribe were calm because they knew very well that when Lang Yu reached his peak, he would erupt with his strongest battle strength. This time, Hu Zhao's strength was particularly fierce. Lang Yu's explosive period also came earlier than before. When Hu Shao smashed Lang Yu to the floor for the 80th time, Lang Yu suddenly broke free from Hu Zhao's restraint and slowly stood up from the ground. At this time, Lang Yu was covered in blood. The expression on his face was exceptionally ferocious. His smile was extremely crazy, and his eyes were filled with an ominous glint. He was like a peerless, vicious beast that had come out of the wilderness. His entire body was emitting a terrifying aura that made one's heart palpitate. Thank you for your hard work. Now it's time for a good show. Seeing Lang Yu's current state, Hu Shao knew that Lang Yu was going to be serious. He took a deep look at Lang Yu and said coldly, "You can only be beaten in front of me." Oh, well, Lang Yu did not speak, but responded to Hu Shao with practical actions. He suddenly rushed towards Hu Shao, and the silhouette of a silver wolf appeared behind him at the same time. It howled and bit fiercely at Hu Shao. Roar! Hu Shao was not to be outdone. He let out a roar that belonged to the king of beasts, and a huge white tiger phantom suddenly appeared behind him. The brilliant divine power made people feel shocked and awed from the bottom of their hearts. This is the divine beast White Tiger. Lion Baron stared at the white tiger shadow behind Hu Shao. Even he could feel a sense of oppression coming from the white tiger shadow. Qin Chuan looked at Hu Shao with a slightly dignified gaze. This terrifying aura made him think of the Milky Way sword intent, which made people completely unable to resist. In fact, in the face of the suppression of the divine beast White Tiger Phantom, the silver wolf behind Lang Yu almost collapsed into nothingness in an instant. Lang Yu crawled on the ground in an extremely unbearable manner, as if he had turned from the insufferably arrogant Wolf King into a stray dog. No one knew how terrifying the pressure Lang Yu was enduring when facing the divine beast White Tiger Phantom. "You've lost." Hu Shao looked calmly at Lang Yu, who was lying on the ground. There was no joy of victory at all, only extreme calmness. The spectators couldn't help but sigh when they saw this scene. In Lang Yu's previous state, if he had met the crown princes of the other 8 tribes, he would most likely have defeated them. However, he had met Hu Shao. In terms of bloodline suppression, Lang Yu had no power to fight against Hu Shao. That kind of feeling was too despairing. Ninth Demon's figure appeared beside Hu Shao. He said to Hu Shao, "Crown Prince, put away the phantom." Hu Shao nodded and slowly dispersed the phantom behind him. He put away the pressure that belonged to the divine beast White Tiger, causing the atmosphere of the spectators to change from tense and dignified to relaxed again. Without the suppression of the divine beast White Tiger Phantom, Lang Yu slowly got up from the ground. At this time, his face was extremely pale, and there was a weak aura all over his body. However, he still looked at Hu Shao fiercely. "I've lost again this time, but you're not the only one who can go back to the origin. The next time I challenge you, I will definitely defeat you." Lang Yu was unwilling, extremely unwilling. He didn't lose to Hu Shao, but to Hu Zhao's ancestor, the divine beast White Tiger. After this defeat, he would also try to go back to the origin, improve the bloodline level, and become a world-destroying demon wolf. Facing Lang Yu's unwillingness, Hu Shao didn't have any reaction. He just slowly turned around and walked toward the spectators of the Tiger King tribe. When Lang Yu saw that Hu Shao didn't pay attention to him, he was furious and roared at Hu Shao. In the end, he was subdued by Ninth Demon and sent to the spectators of the Wolf King tribe. The first round of the preliminaries has ended. Those who have advanced are Crown Prince Hu Shao of the Tiger King tribe, Crown Prince Long Xing of the Dragon King tribe, Crown Prince Shui he of the Fox King tribe, Crown Prince Nyogalu of the Ox King tribe, and Crown Prince Xionda of the Bear King tribe. Together with Qin Xuan, the next round of the preliminaries will begin. In 3 days, the second round of the preliminaries will officially begin. The first round will be between Qin Xuan and Crown Prince Long Xing of the Dragon King tribe. In the martial arts arena, Ninth Demon loudly announced the time and the 2 sides of the next round of the preliminaries. When the spectators heard this, their expressions changed. Qin Xuan versus Crown Prince Long Xing was the highlight. Everyone knew about the feud between Qin Xuan and the Black King Dragon. Qin Xuan even threatened to extract Crown Prince Long Xing's heartblood and give it to the Black King Dragon. Now that the 2 of them were facing off, the spectators could already smell the strong smell of gunpowder before the preliminaries even began. Qin Xuan, Crown Prince Long Xing, clenched his fists and stared at Qin Xuan, who was not far away. He once swore that he would kill Qin Xuan in the martial arts arena to prove that the bloodline of the Flood Dragon tribe wasn't inferior to that of a real dragon. Now, the opportunity had finally come. Chapter 578. Inside the temporary palace of the Black Dragon King. The Black Flood Dragon King looked at Long Xing, who was standing in front of him, and asked, "What are your chances of winning against Qin Xuan at the start of the second round?" Long Xing gritted his teeth. "It doesn't matter if I win or not. I have to win." Seeing Long Xing's determined expression, the Black Dragon King said in a low voice, "You can't beat Qin Xuan with confidence alone. Uncle, please teach me," Long Xing said to the Black Dragon King. "I don't want to lose to Qin Xuan." The Black Dragon King didn't say anything. He just took out a black sword from his storage ring and handed it to Long Xing. "You can win with this sword." Long Xing's eyes lit up when he saw the black sword that the Black Wyrm King handed over. He said in a surprised tone, "Thank you, uncle. I won't let you down." The Black Dragon King looked at Long Xing deeply and said, "Go back and familiarize yourself with this sword." After Long Xing left, the Black Wyrm King's calm expression suddenly turned ferocious. His eyes were filled with intense, killing intent as he said in a deep voice, "I told you not to disturb me when I have people by my side. Black Dragon King, have you thought about that matter?" Another person's voice suddenly sounded in the empty living room. It sounded strange and eerie. "I said I would contact you if I made up my mind," the Black Dragon King said angrily. "This is the Heavenly Demon Temple. I think you must be crazy to show yourself here. So what if it's the Heavenly Demon Temple? Who in the demon realm can stop me?" The newcomer chuckles. "Don't tell me you still don't understand my strength? Then do you know Yao Feng's strength?" The Black Dragon King narrowed his eyes. "If Yao Feng wasn't strong, do you think we'd be so obedient to him? After hearing what you said, I'm looking forward to fighting him more and more." The person sighed. "Unfortunately, I have a more important mission to do. I can't fight him for now. I don't care what mission you have. I just want you to leave right now." The Black Wyrm King snorted coldly. "If you're discovered, then I'll have no choice but to make a move against you. Before Yao Feng dies, I will never betray the demon realm. Are you sure you want me to leave now?" The man chuckled. "I have a secret I want to tell you." "I'm not interested in your secrets," the Black Wyrm King said impatiently. "Leave now." This was the Heavenly Demon Temple, and the person's identity was extremely sensitive. The Black Flood Dragon King did not want to spend a second longer with this person. What a pity. Looks like the true dragon inheritance in Yao Feng's hands can only benefit that little guy called Qin Xuan. "Sai, let's go." "Wait a minute." The Black Flood Dragon King's eyes flashed. "Did you just say that Yao Feng has the true dragon inheritance?" "Did I say that? Why don't I remember?" The person chuckled. "Didn't you want me to leave immediately? Should I go now or not?" The Black Wyrm King's face darkened. It won't be too late for you to leave after you've made yourself clear. All right, then I'll make myself clear. The person coughed softly and said calmly, 100 years ago, Yao Feng obtained a true dragon's inheritance from someone. He has always wanted to open this inheritance and obtain the opportunity within it. However, 100 years have passed, and he has not succeeded. This time, Yao Rao invited Qin Chuan to the heavenly demon temple to be a guest, so that Qin Chuan can inherit the true dragon inheritance. Haven't you always wanted to transform into a true dragon? This true dragon inheritance will be much more useful to you than Qin Chuan's heartblood. Do you want it? How do I know if this is a lie you made up to deceive me? The Black Wyrm King asked. Why should I believe you? It doesn't matter if you believe me or not. The true dragon inheritance really exists. As for the evidence, if you have the heart to search for it, you will definitely be able to find it. Hearing this demonic, bewitching voice, the Black Wyrm King couldn't help but reveal a touch of faint excitement. He asked in a somewhat gloomy voice, what should I do to obtain the true dragon inheritance? Seeing that the Black Wyrm King was moved, the man suddenly laughed wildly. He was extremely proud of himself. As long as you obediently listen to me and help me, I can swear to you that I will definitely give you the true dragon inheritance as a thank you gift. Hearing this, the Black Wyrm King's face revealed a touch of struggle. He said in a low voice, how do you plan to deal with the threat brought by Yao Feng? You don't need to worry about the matter of Yao Feng. Just leave it to me. You only need to do what I tell you. All right, today's meeting is over. When I need your help, I will naturally come and look for you. As soon as he finished speaking, the person left the living room like a ghost. The Black Flood Dragon King sat alone in the living room with a gloomy expression on his face. In the end, it turned into a fierce expression as he said in a low voice, I must obtain the true dragon's inheritance. I didn't think that you would meet Long Xing so soon. Lion Duke smiled at Qin Chuan. How would you plan to deal with Long Xing? Qin Chuan laughed and said, naturally, I will defeat him with lightning speed. I will show everyone how strong I am and make them fear me. I will make them submit to me. Ma Jiawen, who was sitting at the side, heard Qin Chuan and could not help but roll her eyes. She said, the moment you open your mouth, it sounds like a two-dimensional character. You sound so Chinibyu. Speaking of which, do you think there's a problem with Long Xing? Ma Jiawen suddenly said to Qin Chuan. Long Xing and Xue have been good friends for many years. They often go on missions together. I haven't seen anything suspicious about Long Xing yet. When I fight him, I will be able to find out if there is a problem with him. Qin Chuan looked at Ma Jiawen strangely. He asked, do you think there is a problem with everyone now? Ma Jiawen nodded. Yes, that's right. Why? Do you feel the same way? Qin Chuan did not know whether to laugh or cry. He shook his head. He was too lazy to talk to Ma Jiawen about this. He was afraid that if he said too much, Ma Jiawen would suspect him. Big cousin, after seeing Hu Zhao's performance today, I want to try something. Maybe I will need your cooperation. Qin Chuan looked at Lion Duke. If I can succeed, my strength will increase again. Lion Duke looked at Qin Chuan with a slightly subtle look. I seem to have guessed what you want to do. But Hu Zhao's success was influenced by many factors. You only have 3 days. Don't you think it is too late to try now? Sharpening the spear at the last minute is good. Qin Chuan grinned. What if I succeed? Chapter 579. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. The highly anticipated second round of the selection had begun. The first battle was between Qin Chuan and the crown prince of the Flood Dragon tribe, Long Xing. Most people favored Qin Chuan, and only a few favored Long Xing. Qin Chuan, if you can really defeat Long Xing today, then I, Xiang Di, will recognize you as my brother. The crown prince of the Elephant King tribe, Xiang Di, looked at Qin Chuan, who was walking towards him, with a serious expression. Qin Chuan looked at Xiang Di suspiciously. After a while, he asked Ma Jiawen, who was beside him, who is this guy? Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Xiang Di's expression suddenly became very interesting. Ma Jiawen, who was beside him, did not know whether to laugh or cry. She said to Qin Chuan, "You forgot so quickly. You said that he was your close friend." Qin Chuan's face immediately showed a look of realization. He said repeatedly, "Oh, I remember now. So it's Brother Xiang." As he spoke, Qin Chuan had already walked to Xiang Di's side and hugged him enthusiastically. He said to Xiang Di, "Brother Xiang, it's not that I didn't recognize you just now. I was just afraid that if I beat Longxing too badly later, the Flood Dragon tribe would find trouble with you." Hearing Qin Chuan's explanation, Xiang Di forced a smile and said to Qin Chuan, "Then how did you recognize me now? Brother Xiang is fearless and took the initiative to greet me. How can I be overcautious?" Qin Chuan grinned and said loudly to Xiang Di, "Brother Xiang, don't worry. I will definitely do as you say. First, I will break Longxing's legs. Then I will dig out this guy's heart." Qin Chuan's voice was very loud, and the people nearby heard him clearly. They could not help but look at Xiang Di, who was standing beside Qin Chuan. Facing everyone's gaze, Xiang Di could not help but feel a headache. He could not help but ask Qin Chuan angrily, "Are you doing this on purpose?" "I did it on purpose." Qin Chuan froze for a moment, then nodded repeatedly. "I understand what you mean. Don't worry. This is my own decision. It has nothing to do with you, much less the Elephant King division." Xiang Di. When Ma Jiawen saw this scene, she could not help but mourn for Digio in her heart. Why did you take the initiative to stand in front of Qin Chuan? With Qin Chuan's unscrupulous character, it would be strange if he didn't ruthlessly screw over your Elephant King tribe. Xiang Di, you are really something. You actually colluded with Qin Chuan. Not far away, Longxing slowly walked over. He looked at Xiang Di with an extremely gloomy expression. He did not expect Xiang Di to take the initiative to meet Qin Chuan and even beg Qin Chuan to beat him up. When he saw Longxing walking over, Xiang Di's expression suddenly turned ugly. He snorted coldly and said, "This is between me and Qin Chuan. It has nothing to do with you. I just wanted to kindly remind you that Qin Chuan will die under my sword in a moment. I'm afraid your plan will fail." Longxing sneered and looked at Qin Chuan with disdain. "You will definitely die today." Qin Chuan pursed his lips. He did not even look at Longxing and walked towards the martial arts arena with Xiang Di. When he saw Qin Chuan completely ignoring him, Longxing was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. When the surrounding people saw this scene, they did not know whether to laugh or cry. If it was someone like Qin Chuan, they would probably explode with anger. "Just you wait." Longxing roared angrily. He had to make Qin Chuan pay the price. After Longxing's roar, Ninth Demon suddenly appeared beside Longxing and said indifferently, "Noise is prohibited in the Heavenly Demon Temple, even if you are the heir of the Dragon King tribe." Faced with this sudden request, Longxing almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He suppressed the anger in his heart and said to Ninth Demon, "I know my mistake. Please forgive me." The Ninth Demon nodded lightly and then disappeared in a flash, leaving Longxing in the same spot. He had nowhere to vent his anger. In the martial arts arena, Qin Chuan looked calmly at the angry Longxing, who was standing not far away. He appeared to be very relaxed, as if he did not take Longxing seriously at all. Faced with Qin Chuan's disdain, Longxing was so angry that he almost crushed his teeth. He had never hated someone so much in his life. Qin Chuan was definitely the first. "What are you looking at?" Qin Chuan yelled at Longxing like a ruffian. He was purposely showing off and making Longxing unhappy. Seeing how arrogant Qin Chuan was, Longxing gritted his teeth and said, "Later, I will definitely." Before Longxing could finish, Qin Chuan suddenly raised his hand to cover his ears and muttered, "I'm not listening." "Bastard," chanting scriptures. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Longxing was so depressed that he almost vomited blood. This guy was too despicable and disgusting. He really wanted to chop Qin Chuan into pieces immediately. Everyone could not help but laugh when they saw this scene. Qin Chuan was really good at messing with people's minds. "All right, I won't joke with you anymore." Qin Chuan put down his hand and grinned at Longxing. He asked, "What did you want to say just now?" Say it now. Long Xing immediately said to Qin Chuan, Qin Chuan, I'm not listening. Bastard. Chanting scriptures. Poof. Under Qin Chuan's continuous teasing and provocation, Long Xing finally could not take it anymore. His face turned red, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Qin Chuan saw Long Xing spit out blood and could not help but be stunned. Then he asked suspiciously, Are you acting? Don't tell me that you spat out tomato juice. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Long Xing immediately roared in grief and indignation. He opened his mouth and spat out another mouthful of blood. His entire body's essence, qi, and spirit instantly withered to the extreme. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. Who would have thought that before the selection even began, Qin Chuan would make Long Xing spit out blood repeatedly and severely injure his vitality with just a few words? What a disappointment. Seeing this scene, the Black Flood Dragon King's face turned ashen. If he had not been prepared for this, he would have admitted defeat directly just by looking at Long Xing's current state. On the other side, Xiang Di was enjoying this scene. The more miserable Long Xing was, the happier he was. Qin Chuan had only said a few words, and Long Xing was already so angry. When the selection began, Xiang Di was afraid that Long Xing would be crippled by Qin Chuan. On the high platform, when Yao Rao saw Qin Chuan making Long Xing spit out blood, she could not help but laugh and said, Qin Chuan's mouth is too powerful. Long Xing is really going to explode from anger. Yao Feng looked at Qin Chuan's innocent face and then looked at Yao Rao and asked, Rao, if you quarrel with Qin Chuan, can you win? Yao Rao was stunned by Yao Feng's question. After a while, she replied, The two of us will love each other. We will never quarrel. What if we quarrel? We won't. What if? Father, you are so gossipy. Yao Feng. Chapter 580. Long Xing. Can you still participate in the selection? Ninth Demon appeared in the arena and frowned as he looked at the pale Long Xing. In this state, Long Xing would not be able to use even half of his abilities. He was bound to lose. Chief, I think we should disqualify Long Xing and send him to the doctor. If he vomits blood now, he'll vomit his organs when we fight later. Qin Chuan grinned. If he vomits the excrement from his intestines, that would be too disgusting. Ninth Demon's mouth twitched when he heard Qin Chuan's words. Seeing that Long Xing was about to vomit blood again, he quickly sent a gentle wave of demon energy into Long Xing's body to help him stabilize his injuries. With Ninth Demon's help, Long Xing felt a little better. Ninth Demon saw that Long Xing's injuries were stabilized and could not help but turn to look at Qin Chuan. He said to Qin Chuan, Can you shut up? Qin Chuan grinned. Okay. I'll shut up. Tell him to shut up too and stop vomiting blood. It's too disgusting. Long Xing almost vomited blood again when he heard Qin Chuan's words. He glared at Qin Chuan and asked Ninth Demon while panting, Chief, when will the selection begin? Long Xing could not help but want to use Qin Chuan's head as a sacrifice for all the blood he had vomited. Ninth Demon frowned when he saw that Long Xing still insisted on fighting Qin Chuan. Are you sure you want to participate in the selection? Just as Long Xing was about to answer, the Black King Drake's voice came from nearby. Let him participate. There are no cowards in the Drake King tribe. Ninth Demon did not say anything else after hearing the Black King Drake's words. He immediately announced the start of the selection. In the second round of the selection, crowned Prince Long Xing of the Drake King tribe versus Qin Chuan. As soon as Ninth Demon finished speaking and left, Long Xing took out the black longsword he had obtained from the Black King Drake without hesitation. He shouted angrily, Go to hell! Seeing the black sword in Long Xing's hand, Qin Chuan didn't feel anything, but Lion Baron exclaimed, It's the Black Soul Sword. Qin Chuan, this is a Dao artifact. Lion Baron wasn't the only one who recognized that the Black Soul Sword in Long Xing's hand was a Dao artifact. The rest of the 10 King tribes recognized it as well. The black sword in Long Xing's hand was the Black Soul Sword, the most precious treasure of the Dragon King tribe. Subconsciously, everyone turned to look at the Black Drake King. Only the Black Drake King could wield a treasure like the Black Soul Sword. Now that it had appeared in Longxing's hands, it was definitely the Black Drake King's handiwork. No wonder the Black Drake King didn't want Longxing to withdraw from the competition. When Qin Chuan heard Lion Duke's exclamation, his expression turned ugly. "Father, quickly stop Longxing." On the high platform, Yao Rao was shocked to see this scene. Although Longxing wasn't strong, but with the support of the Black Soul Sword, he could definitely kill Qin Chuan. Yao Feng shook his head in response to Yao Rao's pleading. "Don't panic. Qin Chuan may have some means to save his life. If he is really going to die, Father will naturally save him." But Yao Rao wanted to say something, but suddenly a terrifying sword Qi soared into the sky from the training field. "Qin Chuan, it's your honor to die under the Black Soul Sword." While roaring, Longxing waved his sword towards Qin Chuan. He didn't need to control anything. The Black Soul Sword would naturally reap Qin Chuan's life and imprison Qin Chuan's soul forever, never to be reincarnated. Facing this terrifying sword Qin Chuan didn't have any power to resist. The only thing he could do was to look on helplessly as the sword Qi directly penetrated his body and took away his soul. Just when everyone thought everything was going to end, suddenly a large amount of starlight sprinkled down from the dark clouds in the sky. Countless bright and resplendent stars suddenly appeared in the gloomy sky and surged in the horizon, releasing endless sword intent, which instantly pierced through the dark clouds and defeated all the demons and monsters. Seeing this scene, everyone opened their eyes wide, and their face exposed a touch of disbelief. Is this really a battle between a complete Foundation establishment and a top-level demon general? Wasn't this momentum a little too great? This is Silver River Sword Intent. Very soon someone recognized the source of this sword intent. The resplendent star river in the sky had already revealed the answer. In this world, only Silver River Sword Intent could produce such a phenomenon. Although Black Soul Sword was strong, but it might not be the opponent of Silver River Sword Intent. Just when everyone was exclaiming, the Silver River in the sky had already crashed down. Everywhere it passed, everything turned into nothingness. The sword Qi released by Black Soul Sword was like rotten wood in front of Silver River Sword Intent, unable to withstand a single blow. It completely lost the effect of a Dao tool. "No!" While Longxing screamed in panic and despair, countless stars penetrated Longxing's body, and before anyone could react, Longxing's life was taken away. Whoosh! A gentle breeze blew by, and the entire training field was silent. While everyone was silent, Qin Chuan slowly walked to Longxing's corpse and kicked it toward the nearby WRM King tribe spectator area. With a plop, it landed in front of the black WIRM King. "I once said that I would give you Longxing's heart blood. Now I might as well give you his entire body." Qin Chuan looked at the Black Dragon King coldly. "Don't thank me. Qin Chuan, you're courting death." The Black Dragon King roared. Just as he was about to explode, an extremely powerful aura suddenly fell and pressed him firmly into his seat. Black Dragon King, you gave Longxing the Black Soul Sword without permission and broke the balance of the selection. Longxing failed to kill his opponent and was killed instead. You can't blame anyone else. Now that you've attacked Qin Chuan, do you have any respect for me? Yao Feng looked at the Black Dragon King coldly. "Do you want to kill me as well?" Facing Yao Feng's aura, the Black Dragon King's heart calmed down almost instantly. He said in fear and trepidation, "Your Majesty, I have no such intentions." "Then sit tight," Yao Feng said indifferently. "Don't do anything that will bring shame to the Yao realm." When Qin Chuan saw Yao Feng suppress the Black Dragon King, he immediately smiled and asked, "Your Majesty, does this Black Soul Sword count as my spoils of war?" When the other members of the King Division heard Qin Chuan's words, they couldn't help but gasp. This brat was too vicious. Not only did he kill the Crown Prince of the King Division, but he also wanted to take the Black Soul Sword as his spoils of war. He had offended the King Division to the core. If it weren't for the fact that he had to maintain his dignity as the Yao Emperor, Yao Feng really wanted to beat Qin Chuan up. Nothing good ever came out of this guy's mouth. He really knew how to torture people. Give it to me. Yao Feng extended his hand towards Qin Chuan. The Black Soul sword isn't something you could take away. Qin Chuan was a little disappointed when he heard this. Then it looks like I can take the other things. If I knew this would happen, I would have taken Long Xing's storage ring before sending him out. Everyone. Chapter 581. Qin Chuan obediently handed the Black Soul sword to Ninth Demon. Then, under everyone's strange gaze, he left the martial arts arena and returned to the spectator seats. When Lion Baron saw Qin Chuan return, he said regretfully, "It's really a pity that we didn't get the Black Soul sword." Yes. Qin Chuan was also very sad. Although I don't like that sword, it's not bad to sell it for money. You're right. Lion Baron slapped his thigh. Selling the Black Soul sword is enough for us to eat every day for 10 years. Ma Jiawen, who was sitting next to Qin Chuan, heard the conversation between Lion Baron and Ma Jiawen. She couldn't help but roll her eyes. The Black Soul sword was a Taoist artifact, okay? It was enough to suppress the fate of a place. Why did the two of them talk about it, as if it was a piece of scrap metal? The Black Soul sword is a Taoist artifact. Ma Jiawen couldn't help but say, it can be a family heirloom. Hearing Ma Jiawen's words, Qin Chuan looked disdainful. So what? I still defeated it. Ma Jiawen opened her mouth, but she couldn't say a word. Qin Chuan was right. She couldn't find any room to refute. Although the Black Soul sword was strong, it was obviously inferior to the Milky Way sword essence. By the way, how can you still activate the Milky Way sword essence? Ma Jiawen looked puzzled. Didn't you say that you only had one chance? When Qin Chuan heard this, he explained in all seriousness. The last time was the second to last chance. This time, it's really the last chance. When the other spectators heard Qin Chuan's words, they couldn't help but twitch their mouths. The last time was the second to last chance, and this was the last chance? You're really something. Ma Jiawen's reaction was the same as everyone else's. When she heard Qin Chuan say that this was the last chance, she couldn't help but roll her eyes. Who would believe that this was the last chance? When the critical moment came, this last chance would be the second to last chance. Originally, everyone had doubts about Qin Chuan's strength. Now that they saw Qin Chuan kill Long Xing with the Milky Way sword essence, they no longer had any doubts about Qin Chuan. Without a doubt, among all the young people present, Qin Chuan was the most qualified to fight with Hu Shao. Hu Shao had the divine beast white tiger phantom, while Qin Chuan had the Milky Way sword intent. Neither of them were easy to deal with. When the time came, it was hard to say who would emerge victorious. While everyone was still discussing Qin Chuan, the contestants participating in the second round of the preliminaries had already entered the arena. This time, the two contestants were the Bear King tribe's crown prince, Xiongde, and the Fox King tribe's crown prince, Xuehe. Because Xuehe performed extremely well in the last round of the preliminaries, this round had attracted a lot of attention. Based on Xuehe's performance in the last round, it shouldn't be a big problem for him to defeat Xiongde. Once Xuehe won, he would enter the next round of the mysterious assessment. There was a great chance that he would enter the final round. Seeing Xuehe enter the arena, Qin Chuan and the other two almost subconsciously looked at Xuehe, and the way they spoke to each other was through telepathy. He's up. Qin Chuan looked at Xuehe's calm expression and said to Lion Duke and Ma Jiawen, he probably hasn't noticed it yet. His performance is very normal. If he finds out that something is wrong, he will definitely run away. Lion Duke sneered and said, staying and pretending to be calm is just courting death. Big cousin, what you said makes sense. After all, this is the Heavenly Demon Temple. No matter what Xuehe's identity is, if he knows that he has been exposed, he definitely won't have the courage to continue staying in the Heavenly Demon Temple. Ma Jiawen said to Qin Chuan, he probably really doesn't know anything. Qin Chuan was a little puzzled when he heard this and asked, why do you say that? Is there something special about the Heavenly Demon Temple? Ma Jiawen looked deeply at Qin Chuan and said, the Heavenly Demon Temple is a Tao artifact. Don't tell me you think that its only function is to let us live in it. The second round of the selection. Shuehe, the crown prince of the Fox King tribe, versus Xiongda, the crown prince of the Bear King tribe. When Demon 9 announced the start of the competition, Xiongda transformed into his original form without saying a word. He turned into a huge and strong black bear. He moved his strong legs and rushed towards Shuehe at an extremely fast speed. Amidst his angry roar, his powerful aura pressed down on Shuehe, trying to intimidate him. In the face of Xiongda's frontal attack, the effect of the Fox King Jade allowed Shuehe to maintain absolute calm. His body flashed as fast as lightning, trying to avoid Xiongda's attack. However, Xiongda seemed to have expected it. His body changed direction, and his speed was even faster than Shuehe's. Seeing this scene, Qin Chuan was surprised, but Lion Duke and Ma Jiawen felt that it was reasonable. The strength of the Bear King tribe lies in their strong bodies and powerful strength. Their weakness is their slow movement speed. The Bear King tribe is well aware of this. So when it comes to choosing treasures, they will choose treasures that increase movement speed to make up for this weakness. Therefore, don't think that the Bear Druid's huge body is slow. In fact, his speed is faster than most people. Qin Chuan frowned slightly and said in a low voice, although this can make up for their lack of movement speed, it will also make their advantage less prominent. Overall, they will become mediocre. I think this choice is actually unwise. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Lion Duke looked at Qin Chuan in surprise and asked, if you were Xiongda, what would you choose? Qin Chuan replied almost without hesitation, I would choose to increase my strength and physical strength. I would try my best to expand my advantage. Lion Duke chuckled and said to Qin Chuan, in the beginning, the Bear King tribe also did the same. At that time, they were still the Black Bear tribe. Later, they changed and began to make up for their lack of movement speed. Then, the Black Bear tribe became the Bear King tribe. Hearing Lion Duke's words, Qin Chuan couldn't help but stare blankly for a moment. He was puzzled and asked, how could that be? Ma Jiawen, who was sitting at the side, said to Qin Chuan, the amount of water a barrel can hold is not determined by the height of its longest plank, but by the shortest plank. After making up for their lack of movement speed, although the Bear King tribe doesn't have any outstanding advantage, they also don't have any obvious shortcomings. It may seem mediocre, but in fact, it is a huge improvement. This is like you. Obviously, the Talisman Array Dao is your strongest point, but are you going to give up your Sword Dao because of this? All the children in your Star Dragon Federation have to go to school. There are many courses to learn. Students with good grades definitely won't have the problem of being partial to one subject. Hearing Ma Jiawen's words, Qin Chuan pondered for a moment. After a while, he sighed and said, there is a problem with my thinking. The first impression the Bear King tribe gives people is their powerful physical strength and physical strength. But when we focus on these two aspects, we will subconsciously neglect their speed and make mistakes. Chapter 582. Leo Baron pointed at the arena and said to Qin Chuan, you're right. Take Shuehe, for example. He has neglected Xiongda's speed. That's why he's in a passive situation now. Hearing Leo Baron's words, Qin Chuan subconsciously looked in the direction of the arena. At this time, Xiongda had already forced Shuehe into a corner of the arena with no way out. If Shuehe was forced to leave the arena, according to the rules, Shuehe would lose. If Shuehe did not want to be forced to admit defeat, now was his only chance to fight back. Just as Qin Chuan thought, Shuehe obviously didn't want to lose the match like this. After barely dodging the Bear Druid's attack, Shuehe's body suddenly shrunk and turned into a palm-sized little fox. With a swoosh, it crawled under the Bear Druid's crotch and instantly appeared behind the Bear Druid. Buzz! The moment she arrived behind Xiongda, Shuehe's body suddenly swelled up, turning into a huge three-tailed fox. The three tails whistled as they swept towards Xiongda's back. The huge force and Xiongda's forward momentum caused Xiongda to stagger, and he actually stumbled out of the training field. Roar! Xiongda angrily roared. He tried his best to stabilize his body, But how could Shui allow him to do as he wished? The strength of his tail suddenly increased, pushing Xiongda out of the martial arts stage. Bang! Xiongda fell to the ground in a sorry state. Although he did not suffer any damage, he was already out of the arena. It was equivalent to admitting defeat. After realizing this, Xiongda could not help but roar. The word unwilling was written all over his face. He did not expect Shui to make such a counterattack. Everyone in the audience was extremely shocked when they saw this scene. No one expected the situation to suddenly take such a huge turn. Clap, clap, clap. Returning Snow smiled and clapped. He said in a clear voice, giving him a taste of his own medicine. Shui won not because of his strength, but because of his intelligence and reaction. When everyone heard Snow Return's words, they gently nodded in agreement. In the previous battle, Xiongda had the advantage by making the first move. Shui could only block and not fight back. However, when Xiongda accidentally revealed a flaw, Shui quickly took advantage of it and turned the tables. Although it was not thrilling, it was very exciting. Shui could be said to have used his adaptability to the extreme. If not for that, it would have been very difficult to win. Just as everyone was praising Shui's quickness, Qin Xuan saw something different. He looked at Shui in the arena and asked Ma Jiawen, "Did you see something?" Ma Jiawen was slightly taken aback and asked, "What should I see?" Qin Xuan glanced at Ma Jiawen. Just now, in order to counterattack, Shui crawled under Xiongda's crotch. Based on your understanding of Shui, do you think he would do such a humiliating thing in the eyes of nobles? Ma Jiawen pondered for a moment, then frowned. From what I know, other than Lang Yu, the heir of the Wolf King clan, no one else would do such a thing. The 10 king clans were nobles in the Yao realm. They were very particular in their conduct, and rarely did they not abide by etiquette. In that situation, just now, if it were her, she would not do such a thing as crawling under someone's crotch without endangering her life. Compared to losing face, she would rather lose this match. Hearing Ma Jiawen's answer, Qin Xuan pondered for a moment before replying. Actually, what I said is just a guess. After all, in the Star Dragon Federation, those who are respected will rarely do such a thing under any circumstances. In that situation, just now, I originally predicted that Shui would directly transform into his original form to counterattack. However, he first crawled under Xiongda's crotch and adjusted his position before counterattacking. If it was according to my train of thought, his chances of winning are not high, but according to his train of thought, his chances of winning are extremely high. Lion Baron frowned and said, "Maybe this is just his reaction in a moment of desperation." Qin Xuan shook his head and said, "Have you forgotten? This person is not Shui himself. He is role-playing according to the information of the Octagon Guard. According to the information, it is absolutely impossible for Shui to do such a disrespectful thing. But now he is doing it. What does this mean?" Lion Baron and Ma Jiawen both felt confused by Qin Xuan's words. They subconsciously asked, "What does this mean? This means that Shui wants to win, or the person who has occupied Shui's body wants to win." Qin Xuan looked deeply at Shui in the distance and said to the two beside him, "He must be up to something." Seeing that Lion Baron and Ma Jiawen were both confused, Qin Xuan explained, "Think about it. This person is using Shui's body to hide in the monster realm. He must be up to something. Before he has a chance to succeed, will you choose to continue hiding or show your strength?" Hearing Qin Xuan's words, Lion Baron seemed to understand Qin Xuan's meaning and asked, "Are you trying to say that Shui's purpose is to become the Emperor's son-in-law? That's why he took the risk of revealing his strength to defeat his opponent?" Qin Xuan shook his head again and said to the two, "I don't think Shui's purpose is to become the Emperor's son-in-law, but for the mysterious test that the Monster King mentioned before." Ma Jiawen was puzzled, but now no one knows what the mysterious test is. "We don't know, but that doesn't mean others don't know." Qin Xuan chuckled. "There's no such thing as an airtight wall in this world." Shui slowly made his way back to the stands with a smile on his face. "Annie, I've won this fight." With this win, Shui is considered to have entered the semi-finals. His chances of becoming the Emperor's son-in-law have increased yet again. Snow Return nodded with a smile. You've worked hard. Shuehe shook his head. It wasn't hard, just a little embarrassing. Embarrassing? Snow Return didn't understand. How so? In order to win, I crawled under the Bear Druid's crotch. Shuehe whispered, It's a disgrace to the Fox King clan. Returning Snow chuckled when he heard this. Those who want to achieve great things don't care about trifles. This is nothing. If anyone dares to gossip about this matter behind my back, as your aunt, I will let them know what they can say and what they can't. Shui didn't say anything else and quietly sat down in his seat, ready to watch the last fight of the second round. Chapter 583. The match between Hu Xiao and Niu Galu was recognized as the match without any suspense. And in fact, it was indeed so. Under Hu Xiao's attack, Niu Galu was defeated without being able to persist for long, and took the initiative to admit defeat. Regarding this, no one felt that there was anything wrong with it. After all, forcibly dragging on the match wouldn't change the result. So far, the second round of selection had ended, and the three people who had successfully advanced to the next round were Tiger King Division's heir Hu Xiao, Fox King Division's heir Shuehe, and Qin Chuan. According to the previous rules, the three of them would undergo an assessment personally set by Demon Emperor, and the two people who passed the assessment first would enter the final round, and the winner would become Prince Consort, and would marry Princess Yaorao on the date of marriage. As for what this mysterious assessment was, Demon Emperor didn't announce it immediately. Rather, he would announce it at the moment the assessment began. Regarding this, everyone had great expectations, as they all wanted to see what kind of assessment Demon Emperor would set up in this semi-finals to screen out the most suitable two people. On the way back, Qin Chuan and his group were all thinking about their own matters, and no one spoke, so the atmosphere was somewhat heavy. Until the arrival of Yaorao, this atmosphere became somewhat relaxed. Why do you all look so gloomy? Yaorao curiously looked at Qin Chuan and his group. What sad matter have you all encountered? Qin Chuan looked at Yaorao, who had suddenly appeared, then reluctantly smiled and asked, Why have you come? The assessment will be held tomorrow, so I specially came to see you all. Seeing that forced smile on Qin Chuan's face, Yaorao suspiciously asked, What happened to you three? Qin Chuan spread out his hands and said, Nothing, just thinking a bit too much. Qin Chuan was indeed thinking a bit too much regarding Shuehe, regarding the assessment, and also regarding the future. Then what about those two? Yaorao curiously looked at Lion Duke and Ma Jiaowen, then asked, What happened to them? Having heard this, Ma Jiaowen made a wry smile, then said to Yaorao, Too many things have happened recently. My mind is somewhat in a mess. For Ma Jiaowen, this selection competition originally didn't have any special meaning. However, because Snow River's problem was exposed, a crisis could come at any time. If Qin Chuan's guess was correct, then Snow River would definitely make a move in tomorrow's assessment. At that time, something unexpected might happen, and this was something that Ma Jiaowen didn't want to see. However, all of this was just their speculation. There was no direct evidence to prove that he would make a move in the assessment tomorrow. Therefore, they couldn't react in advance. They could only wait for Shuehe to reveal himself. This feeling was too torturous for Ma Jiaowen, so she wasn't in a good mood. As for Lion Duke, no one knew what he was thinking, and he had no intention of telling them. Yaorao, how much do you know about tomorrow's assessment? Qin Chuan somewhat curiously asked Yaorao. Other than Demon Emperor, who else knows the content of assessment? If other than Demon Emperor, other people knew about the content of assessment, then his guess might be true. Having heard this, Yaorao replied, I don't know about assessment. Currently, only Father Emperor and Mother Empress know about the content of assessment. Even Chief Steward doesn't know about it. Hearing Yaorao's answer, Qin Chuan's heart slightly moved, then asked Yaorao, Do you think the possibility of your Mother Empress leaking the content of assessment to Fox King Division? I am asking you this not because I am doubting the character of your Mother Empress. Rather, I want to make sure that the content of assessment won't be leaked. Yaorao muttered to herself for a moment, then very seriously said to Qin Chuan, "Rest assured, it is impossible for Mother Empress to tell the content of assessment to Fox King Division." Rear Hall. Snow Chio looked at Shui Gue, who was sitting in front of her with complicated gaze, then softly said, "The last time we met should be the day became an adult." Shui Gue smiled and nodded his head, then replied, "It is indeed that day. From now on, it has been almost 2 years. Time really flies." Snow Chio sighed and said, "And the last time we met seemed to be more than 10 years ago. Since I became Demon Empress, I have never returned. I don't know if there are many changes in Fox King Division now. If we really want to talk about it, actually there are not many changes. Everything is more or less the same as before." Shui Gue looked at Snow Chio and said with rather complicated tone, "Only pity us sisters. We rarely get together after so many years. If I often come to visit you, I am afraid other King Division people will gossip about us." Hearing Shui Gue, Snow Chio's face couldn't help but reveal a touch of desolation. Since she became Demon Empress, those former sisters by her side all alienated her for various reasons and very rarely had contact with her. Regarding this matter, although Snow Chio had already expected it, but when it actually happened, she still felt somewhat sad in her heart. Seeing the change of expression on Snow Chio's face, Shui Gue sighed softly and said to Snow Chio, "In fact, it is not that we sisters are cruel, but if we get too close to Fox King Division, after all, it will have some bad influence on Fox King Division, and His Majesty will inevitably be suspicious and jealous." Snow Chio nodded and said, "I understand your feelings, but His Majesty is not such a stingy person. His Majesty is wise and mighty. Naturally, he won't do anything stingy." Shui Gue smiled and said to Snow Chio, "Speaking of which, I didn't expect His Majesty to suddenly hold a selection to choose a prince consort for Yaorao." Snow Chio heard this and said somewhat helplessly, "You want to say that His Majesty is partial to Tiger King Division's Prince Hu Shao?" Shui Gue smiled and replied, "If it was before, I would have thought so. After all, Hu Zhao's performance was obvious to all. If we had to guess who the final winner would be, there's an 80% to 90% chance that it would be Hu Shao. But now it is different, not to mention Qin Chuan. Just the Prince of Fox King Division's Prince Shui, his performance is not worse than Hu Zhao's. It is not impossible for him to win." Hearing Shui Gue mention Shui, Snow Chio's eyes moved slightly and said softly, "Shui's performance is really good. It is very amazing. Sister, if Shui can stand out and become the prince consort's prince consort, will it be considered as a family?" Shui Gue looked at Snow Chio and asked, "Sister, there are some things I don't know if I should ask you or not." Snow Chio looked deeply at Shui Gue and said in a serious tone, "If Shui can win, then naturally I will not raise any objections. The others are also not qualified to oppose. But if Shui wins not by his own strength, but by other means, then it is not a fair victory." Shui Gue pursed his lips and said, "Sister, if Shui wants to win, he will have to rely on his own strength, but sometimes luck and background are also a part of strength." Chapter 584. Sigh. Shui Chio let out a long sigh. Her face was full of worry. She didn't seem to be in a good mood. Yao Feng walked over slowly and sat down beside Shui Chio. He asked softly, "Why are you sighing here?" Shui Chio turned to look at Yao Feng and said softly, "Your Majesty, you're right. I treat them like brothers and sisters. However, in their eyes, I'm just a tool." "It seems like Shui Gue asked you about the test." Yao Feng smiled faintly. "It seems like Shui Gue really wants to turn the Fox King Division into the Fox Emperor Division." Shui Chio looked at Yao Feng in confusion and asked, "Your Majesty, I don't understand why you want me to reveal the test to Shui Gue. Aren't you afraid that Shui will be the final winner? I'm really worried that Qin Chuan won't be a match for Shui. I asked you to reveal the test to Shui Gue to test him. Based on Shui Gue's performance, she should still be herself. Her body hasn't been taken over." Yao Feng explained to Shui Chio, "Shui Gue is still Shui Gue. This means that Shui, he has one less helper in the Heavenly Monster Temple. I think it's worth it to exchange the test for this information. Shueqiu was confused. Your Majesty, how did you know that Shuegui is still Shuegui? From her ambition, Yao Feng smiled. I don't think that an outsider who took over Shuegui would think for the Fox King Division. Only a member of the Fox King Division would hope for the Fox King Division to become the Fox Emperor Division. Shuegui's performance proves this point. Isn't this a little too far-fetched? Shueqiu frowned slightly. I don't think this proves that Shuegui is innocent. At least part of it can be proven. That's enough. Yao Feng smiled. Compared to some greedy monster kings, Shuegui's performance is pretty good. In the palace where the Fox King Division was temporarily staying, Shuegui called He over as soon as he returned. Shui saw Shuegui sitting on a chair and asked curiously, Aunt, why did you call me over in such a hurry? Shuegui smiled and said to Shui, Crown Prince, you've been training hard. Aunt has a piece of good news to share with you to help you relieve some pressure. Shui sat down on a chair and asked, Aunt, what good news do you have? Is the news about the content of the assessment good news? Shuegui smiled rather proudly. I just want to see the Demon Empress, and she told me some information about the test. Hearing Shuegui's words, Shui frowned and said, Isn't this unfair? Your Highness, we didn't break the fairness of the selection. Even if you know the content of the assessment in advance, if you're not strong enough, you will still be eliminated, right? Returning Snow said seriously to Shui, In the end, it all depends on your strength. Nothing else matters. Don't worry about it too much. Shui fell silent. After a while, he said to Shuegui, Aunt, you're right. I know what to do. Hearing Shui's answer, Returning Snow smiled with satisfaction and said to Shui, Relax, this is my aunt's doing. It has nothing to do with you. You just have to perform well. Remember, we are doing this for the Fox King tribe. Aunt, I'm going to go cultivate. After Shui obtained the information, he bid farewell to Shuegui and returned to his own room. The moment he entered the room, Shui's calm face suddenly became sinister and sinister, revealing a thick, evil aura. What a smart woman. Shui looked at the report in disdain. Do you think I need this? The next day, 9 o'clock in the morning, Sky Demon Temple. Yao Feng sat on the dragon throne and looked calmly at the 10 king clans below the stage. His eyes were focused on Qin Chuan, Hu Xiao, and Shui. Today, there will be a test to choose the 2 candidates for the finals. Are the 3 of you ready? Facing Yao Feng's question, Qin Chuan and the other 2 answered in unison. We're ready. In that case, I will now announce the test. With a casual wave of Yao Feng's hand, an oval-shaped passageway that could fit 1 person appeared in front of Qin Chuan and the other 2. When they saw this passageway, a curious expression appeared on everyone's faces. No one knew where this passageway led to. Yao Feng said calmly, Behind this tunnel is a place called Dragon's Valley. Dragon's Valley is where the test will be held. Someone from the 10 king clans gasped when they heard Yao Feng. They looked at the tunnel in shock. They never thought that the mysterious test would be held in the legendary Dragon's Valley. Dragon's Valley was the place where the first true dragon was born. It was also the habitat of the true dragon clan. It was similar to Sky Phoenix Valley, but it was even more mysterious. Among the crowd, Shuegui looked at the tunnel in front of him. His eyes were burning with passion. Dragon's Valley, which was the land of the true dragon clan's inheritance, only existed in legends. No one had ever seen what Dragon's Valley looked like or where it was. If Shueqiu had not revealed this to her yesterday, she would never have thought that the legendary Dragon's Valley was in the hands of the Shifter King. Seeing everyone's shocked expressions, Qin Chuan curiously asked Lion Duke, who was not far away, What kind of place is Dragon Valley? Why are these people so excited? Lion Duke looked at Qin Chuan and said, Kid, you are going to be rich. Dragon's Valley is the habitat of the true dragon clan. It is also the place where the first true dragon was born. Other people might not be able to get any benefits if they go in, but you will definitely earn a lot. Qin Chuan was stunned when he heard Lion Duke's words. He thought that the place was just called Dragon's Valley. He did not expect it to be related to dragons. Silence. Yao Jiu shouted, and successfully silenced the excited crowd. Yao Feng continued, I have hidden 2 Shifter King's orders in Dragon's Valley. The first person to find the 2 Shifter King's orders and successfully return will be the winner. Hu Shao asked, Your Majesty, what if a person obtains 2 Shifter King's orders at the same time? Everyone turned to look at Yao Feng, waiting for his reply. Yao Feng looked at Hu Shao calmly and said, If you can obtain 2 Shifter King's orders at the same time, the other 2 will be eliminated. You will become the Prince Consort. Chapter 585. If there are no other questions, then prepare to enter. You will be randomly teleported to different locations. Maybe there will be danger. Maybe there won't be danger. It all depends on your luck. If you encounter an irresistible force, then just admit defeat. Although you will be eliminated, you won't lose your life. Yao Feng said it casually, but the others listened with a heavy heart. None of them had entered the Dragon's Valley before. No one knew if there was any danger in the Dragon's Valley. If they were to lose their lives in there, it would be a huge loss. No matter what the others thought, Qin Chuan was determined to get the Demon King's token that was hidden in the Dragon's Valley. Because of that, he took the lead without any hesitation and walked into the tunnel. His figure instantly disappeared. Seeing this, Hu Shao did not want to be outdone. He immediately walked into the tunnel, and Shui he followed closely behind. After Qin Chuan and the other 2 walked into the tunnel disappeared. It was replaced by 3 huge mirrors for everyone to watch the process of the assessment. Qin Chuan stood on the ground and looked at the endless yellow sand in front of him. He then looked in other directions. Other than the yellow sand, he could not see anything else. Didn't they say that the location of the assessment was the Dragon's Valley? Why am I in a desert? Qin Chuan was a little confused. In his imagination, the Dragon's Valley should be a place full of green plants and full of vitality. But in reality, it was full of yellow sand. It was a desolate place. There was no way to associate it with the 3 words Dragon's Valley. Walala, this sand. Suddenly, Qin Chuan seemed to have noticed something. He quickly squatted down and grabbed a handful of sand from the ground. He looked at it carefully and could not help but exclaim, Gold! At this moment, Qin Chuan looked around again. The confusion in his eyes had turned into shock. If he did not see wrongly, this endless desert was completely made of gold sand. Such a huge amount of gold sand was enough to buy anything in the outside world. However, other than this discovery making Qin Chuan feel shocked, it could not change Qin Chuan's current situation. After the shock, Qin Chuan decided to find a direction to move forward and see if he could walk out of this endless golden desert. Compared to Qin Chuan's encounter, Hu Shao and Shui He's situation was much better. The 2 of them landed beside a forest and a river respectively. Although they were also confused and did not know where to go, they were much more comfortable compared to Qin Chuan. After everyone in the Heavenly Demon Temple saw the encounter of Qin Chuan and the other 2, they could not help but sympathize with Qin Chuan. This golden desert was endless. They did not know how long it would take to walk out. Maybe Hu Shao and Shui he would have already found the Demon King's token before he could walk out of the golden desert. Qin Chuan's luck is really invincible. Ma Jiawen looked helpless. Even if the Demon King's token is hidden in this golden desert, it would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. There is basically no hope. Hearing Ma Jiawen's words, Lion Lord nodded in agreement. With Qin Chuan's current situation, it did seem a little troublesome. Qin Chuan swore that he definitely did not take a detour. However, after half a day, he still could not see the end of the golden desert. This made him doubt his previous judgment. Could it be that this golden desert did not exist, but was an illusion? After thinking about this, Qin Chuan immediately tried to break the illusion. However, no matter what he did, he could not change the scene in front of him. It's not an illusion. As a talisman array master, Qin Chuan had a certain understanding of illusion arrays. No matter how advanced an illusion array was, there should be a flaw. Everything in front of him was too real. Could it be that I chose the wrong direction? Qin Chuan frowned slightly and whispered, If I can't leave this golden desert because I chose the wrong direction, then I'll go back and change to another direction. If I choose the wrong direction again, then I'll waste too much time. After thinking about it, Qin decided to change the direction and try again. If it still did not work, then he would think of another way. Qin had always been a man of action. After thinking about this, he immediately adjusted his direction and began to move in another direction. After walking for half a day, he stopped again. Looking at the endless sea of sand in the distance, Qin felt that his body and soul were exceptionally tired. He could not walk anymore. No matter how far the road was, it was not as terrifying as a road with no hope. It's been a day. Qin sat cross-legged on the ground and looked up at the sun in the sky. The sky has not darkened. Is it because the day is long, or there is no night here? Qin casually thought about unimportant questions. He tried to empty his mind and recover his energy as much as possible. In the end, he simply lay on the ground and looked up at the sky in a daze. Qin can't hold on anymore? When the people of Heavenly Beast Temple saw that Qin had given up struggling and was lying on the ground, they couldn't help but be surprised. In this kind of environment, where people can't see the end and can't walk to the end, it's very easy for people to get lost. Qin has made the right decision to lie down and rest. If he clenches his teeth and continues to walk, I'm afraid he will be driven crazy. Lion Duke sighed. It's really too difficult for him. While speaking, Lion Duke raised his eyes and looked at Yao Feng, who was sitting above. He suspected that Qin's current predicament was deliberately arranged by Yao Feng. Qin, you have to hold on. When Yao Rao saw Qin lying on the ground with a tired face, she couldn't help but feel distressed. It was very easy for a person to collapse in this kind of environment. She was really worried that Qin would have an accident. Seeing the worried expression on Yao Rao's face, Xueqiu slightly pursed her lips and said to Yao Rao, "Relax. Qin won't fall so easily. He will definitely be able to walk out of this predicament." When Yao Rao heard that, she nodded. She still couldn't hide the worry on her face. Clearly, she still couldn't feel at ease. When everyone was talking about Qin's predicament, Qin, who was lying on the ground, suddenly stood up. He looked up at the sky and stared at the sun in the sky. Seeing Qin's action, everyone's attention was attracted. They were puzzled by Qin's reaction. What was so good about the sun in the sky? When Yao Feng, who was sitting on the dragon throne, saw Qin's action, he was surprised. He said in a low voice, "He found out so quickly? His observation is really sharp." Chapter 586. There's something wrong with this sun. Qin frowned as he looked at the sun in the sky. His heart was full of doubts. The edge of the sun was too smooth, as if it had been cut. As he looked at it, Qin seemed to think of something. He couldn't help but look stunned as he muttered, "I didn't expect to become a frog at the bottom of a well." As he spoke, Qin's body suddenly expanded, turning into a blue thunder dragon. Then, he flew straight toward the sun in the sky. Seeing Qin's action, everyone in the Heavenly Demon Temple looked surprised. It didn't take long for their surprise to turn into shock. This was because Qin had crashed straight into the sun. He didn't crash into the sun. This is... Ma Jiawen looked at the sudden change in the environment on the screen in surprise. This is a bottle? Qin was in a bottle just now. Looking at the bottle on the screen, Lion Lord chuckled. It's indeed a bottle. Qin was in this round bottle just now. It's just that his body has been shrunk countless times, so the world in the bottle seems particularly big. This should be a magic treasure collected by someone in the Dragon Clan. I just don't know why it ended up here. Through the audience's perspective, everyone saw Qin's super mini figure emerge from a round bottle. The moment he left the bottle, he returned to his human form, and his body quickly returned to its normal size. Whoosh! Qin stood by the stream and looked at the dense vegetation around him, the blue sky, white clouds, and the brilliant sun. He couldn't help but smile. He said in a relaxed tone, "I really am a frog at the bottom of a well." If he hadn't discovered the abnormality of the sun while lying on the ground and looking at the sky, he would probably have been trapped in this bottle for a while. By then, he might have really collapsed. As he spoke, Qin Chuan lowered his head and looked at the golden round bottle at his feet. He bent down to pick it up and looked at the mouth of the bottle. Immediately, he felt an extremely powerful suction force coming from the bottle, trying to pull him in. Qin Chuan quickly looked away when he saw this, and the suction force disappeared. This bottle is a little interesting. Qin Chuan smiled and put the bottle into his storage ring. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly touched something under his feet. He subconsciously looked down and found that it was something like a bottle cork. When he saw the cork, the smile on Qin Chuan's face became even brighter. He bent down and picked up the golden cork, storing it in his storage ring. Although it was very unpleasant to be trapped in the bottle, now that he had gained something, the displeasure in his heart disappeared. Everyone in the Celestial Demon Temple became curious when they saw this. They wanted to know what effect the golden bottle had. Unfortunately, they could only see the image, but they couldn't feel it. However, from the joy on Qin Chuan's face, they could tell that the golden bottle was definitely a very good artifact. Seeing that Qin Chuan had profited from his misfortune, everyone looked forward to Qin Chuan's performance. As for Hu Xiao and Xue He, they didn't know if they were lucky or unlucky. They didn't encounter any danger, but they didn't encounter any benefits either. They were currently exploring the terrain in search of the two hidden Demon King's medallions. Qin Chuan was in no hurry to find the Demon King's medallions immediately. After walking around a few times, he found a place with good scenery to sit down and rest quietly. Previously, he had used up too much energy in the golden bottle. Until now, he still hadn't recovered. If he couldn't explore this place in his best condition, he would feel uneasy. And the reason why Qin Chuan felt uneasy was not because he was worried that there would be danger in Dragon's Valley, but because he was worried that Xue He would do something dangerous. After knowing that the examination location was Dragon's Valley, Qin Chuan could basically confirm that Xue He's plot was definitely in Dragon's Valley. Although he didn't know what Xue He was plotting, he could roughly guess that this thing was definitely related to the Dragon Clan. Maybe it was a treasure of the Dragon Clan, or maybe it was something that the Dragon Clan had once collected. In short, no matter what Xue He wanted, he had to stop it. So, it was very important for him to be in a good condition. Just as Qin Chuan was resting, Xue He was crazily wandering around the mountain forest. He tirelessly explored the unknown place in front of him. Occasionally, he would encounter some precious elixirs, but they couldn't attract Xue He's attention at all. Where did those damned idiots live in the past? Xue He thought in his heart. His eyes looked around. Along the way, other than some elixirs, there was nothing else that caught his eyes. It was completely different from the Dragon's Valley in his imagination. After thinking for a while, Xue He decided to find a high place to observe the surrounding terrain first. Then, he would make a plan. He glanced at the tall mountain on his left. With a light tap of his feet, he quickly approached the tall mountain and quickly climbed up. In just a short while, Xue He arrived at the peak of the mountain. What made him feel surprised was that Hu Xiao was actually there as well. Seeing Xue He climbing the mountain, Hu Xiao faintly glanced at him. Then, he retracted his gaze and looked at the distance again. Regarding this, Xue He didn't mind at all. He followed Hu Xiao's gaze and couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. He blurted out, "This is a dragon." The mountain range in the distance twisted and turned. It was shaped like a crouching dragon. At first glance, he even thought that he saw a real dragon. This is the ancestral Dragon Mountain Range. Hu Xiao faintly said, "According to legend, the first true dragon born between heaven and earth was called the ancestral dragon. After the ancestral dragon died, it turned into a winding mountain range. It was called the Dragon's Valley, and it provided the dragon race with a place to live." Hearing Hu Xiao's words, Xue He was extremely shocked. He asked, "This mountain range is the ancestral dragon. That's the legend. But whether this mountain range was formed by the ancestral dragon or not, I don't know." Hu Xiao looked at Xue He and asked, "Have you seen Qin Chuan?" Xue He very honestly shook his head and said, "You are the first person I saw after coming in. You also came here to observe the terrain?" Hu Xiao nodded his head and said, "This place is too big. It's too difficult to find the Demon Emperor's writ here. So, I'm looking for the exit. Shuehe was stunned for a moment. He asked in confusion, "Why are you looking for the exit?" This time, Hu Shao didn't answer Shuehe's question. He turned around and walked down the mountain. Seeing this, Shuehe didn't have any intention to follow. After that, he once again looked at the ancestral dragon mountain range under his feet. After identifying the terrain and confirming the location of the dragon's head, he quickly followed the mountain path and flew towards the dragon's head. Chapter 587. Phew. Qin Xuan stopped channeling, opened his mouth, and slowly spat out a mouthful of turbid air. After that, he stood up and quickly ran forward. He wanted to find the highest place to take a look at the entire Dragon's Valley before making any plans. In the Heavenly Demon Temple, when everyone saw that Qin Xuan was also heading towards the Zulong Mountains, a subtle expression appeared on their faces. At a rough glance, Qin Xuan, Hu Shao, and Shuehe all chose to ascend the Zulong Mountains to observe the terrain before making a decision. But in reality, there were some differences. First of all, Hu Shao ascended the Zulong Mountains to observe the terrain not long after entering the Dragon Valley. He was attracted by the scenery of the Zulong Mountains and stopped to observe for a period of time. Qin Xuan went straight to the Zulong Mountains after he left the Golden Bottle and rested for a while. On the other hand, Shuehe only remembered to ascend the mountain after bumping his head around for a long time. From his point of view, the difference between Shuehe and Qin Xuan and Hu Shao was a little too big. Just as everyone was thinking about these things, Qin Xuan had already ascended the Zulong Mountains. Just like Shuehe before, Qin Xuan was also shocked, speechless, after seeing the appearance of the Zulong Mountains. It was as if he was facing a sleeping dragon. The pressure was extremely great. This mountain range is really worthy of being the Dragon Valley. Qin Xuan sighed. If there really is such a huge dragon in this world, then what level of strength would it be? Qin Xuan had seen the original body of the Azure Dragon Song Hao before. Although it was huge, it was still a far cry from the mountain range in front of him. After sighing, Qin Xuan looked in other directions, looking for places where the Demon Emperor's token might be hidden. However, as far as the eye could see, there were only forests all around. Other than the dense green plants, there was nothing else. The biggest gain from coming here was probably seeing a lot of good scenery. Just as Qin Xuan thought that he was going to get nothing, he suddenly felt something and subconsciously looked towards the middle of the mountain range. That is, Qin Xuan was slightly stunned. If this mountain range is a real dragon, then that place should be where the Dragon Heart is. After confirming the location of the Dragon Heart, Qin Xuan went straight to the Dragon Heart. As for the Demon Emperor's token, he did not think about it for the time being. In the Heavenly Demon Temple, after everyone saw Qin Xuan heading towards the Dragon Heart, they could not help but think of the decision made by Shuehe earlier. One went to the Dragon Head, and the other went to the Dragon Heart of the Dragon. Of the two of them, who was right? I feel that Shuehe is just gambling and trying her luck. Qin Xuan is the one who really sensed it. After all, Qin Xuan has king, of course, of the Zulong Mountains of the Zulong Mountains is zone. It is Zulong Mountains of the mountain. Of the Zulong Mountains is of the ofs of it. It is I of the item of the item. It of the item of the to see. I of the. I is. I think it's the former. Ma Jiawen looked serious. If you don't get the treasure, you can continue to get it in the future. But if you lose your wife, then it will be difficult to find her again. Hearing Ma Jiawen say this in such a serious manner, Lion Duke's expression became very strange. He responded, "A man's ambition is to travel far. Strength is the most important thing. Love is just the scenery on the road of cultivation. You just have to experience it." Ma Jiawen heard this and immediately retorted, "Big cousin, you must have never liked a girl before." Lion Duke laughed. "I have spent my entire life cultivating and fighting. I have no time to talk about love. That's why I said you don't understand." Ma Jiawen sighed and said, "You have never experienced love before. You don't understand the charm of love." Lion Duke was speechless. When Shui stood on the Zulong mountain range, he felt that the dragon's head was just in front of him. But when he really started to move forward, he felt that the journey was very long. Half a day had passed, and he had walked more than 10,000 meters, but he had barely reached the middle of the Zulong mountain range. There was still a long way to go before he reached the dragon's head. Damn it, if it weren't for those people watching outside, I would have already reached the dragon's head. Shui complained in his heart. If it weren't for the fact that he was worried that the Demon King would find something unusual and immediately stop the assessment, he would not have endured until now. God knew how uncomfortable it was for him to maintain the strength of a top-tier demon general. Rumble. At this moment, the ground suddenly trembled. Shui was shocked and immediately stopped moving forward. What's going on? Shui looked in front of him in surprise. Just as he was about to go forward to see what was going on, a giant beast suddenly came out of the dense forest and roared with its head held high. Seeing this giant beast, Shui was shocked. At the same time, the giant beast pounced on him, opened its bloody mouth, and tried to bite Shui. The sudden attack of the giant beast made Shui unable to react in time. He was directly swallowed into the giant beast's stomach. Prince Snow Return, who was watching from the heavenly beast temple, cried out when he saw this. He immediately turned to the Demon King and shouted, "Your Majesty, please stop the assessment." Yao Feng looked at returning Snow coldly and asked, "Are you sure? If you stop the assessment, Shui will be eliminated immediately." Snow Return gritted his teeth and said, "Yes." At a time like this, protecting Shui's life was the most important thing. The assessment was secondary. Just as Yao Feng was about to stop the assessment, the giant beast that had swallowed Shui suddenly howled in pain and collapsed to the ground. At the same time, a gaping hole appeared in its abdomen. A mixture of organs and blood flowed out and covered the ground. Cough, cough. Amidst the blood, a figure slowly crawled to his feet. He coughed softly and stood up. It was Shui, who had been swallowed into the giant beast's stomach. But his condition didn't look too good. Damn it, it has a corrosive effect. Shui cursed under his breath. If I knew this would happen, I would have dodged. Feeling the pain coming from his body, Shui frowned slightly and walked towards a stream not far away. He had to wash off the filth on his body before he could rest for a while. Yao Feng watched from the heavenly beast temple. He asked Snow Return, "Should we stop the assessment?" Snow Return looked at Shui's pitiful state and hesitated. In the end, he shook his head. "Let's not stop it for now." For now. Yao Feng's voice was cold. Every participant only has one chance to stop the assessment. You've already used it. There won't be a second chance. Snow Return's face changed when he heard Yao Feng's words. According to Yao Feng's words, if they were to encounter any more danger after Snow River, they would die. But now that Shui was out of danger, if he stopped the assessment now, all his efforts would be for naught. Chapter 588. In the end, Shui Huan didn't choose to stop the test. She had to believe in Shui's strength because this selection competition was too important for their Fox King division. Although there was a chance of death if they continued the test, if they survived and successfully entered the finals, then the rewards would be extremely bountiful. For the sake of the Fox King division's future, Shui had to withstand the pressure. Seeing Shui Gui's silence, everyone understood his choice. No one thought that there was anything wrong with it. As the crown prince of the Fox King division, Shui enjoyed the best treatment. When the Fox King division needed him, he had to make a sacrifice. If Shui was unwilling to take this risk, he didn't deserve to be the crown prince. Shui didn't know what had happened in the heavenly demon temple, but even if he did, he wouldn't care. Even if Shui Gui wanted him to stop the test, he wouldn't. After washing his body in the stream, Shui began to rest by the riverside. Suddenly, the ground began to tremble again. Sensing the tremors, Shui's expression immediately turned solemn. He looked in the direction of the tremors and could vaguely see dozens of giant beasts rushing towards him. Damn it, why are there so many giant beasts? Shuehi cursed, turned around, and ran. Rumble. Shuehi ran very fast, but the giant beasts were not slow either. They chased closely behind Shuehi. Seeing that he could not shake off the beast behind him even if he ran as fast as he could not help but feel a little irritated. Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of Shuehi. It was Hu Xiao, whom he had met not long ago. Seeing Hu Xiao's figure, Shuehi didn't even have time to reveal a surprised expression before he saw the group of giant beasts chasing after Hu Xiao. At the same time, Hu Xiao also saw the group of giant beasts behind Shuehi, and his face instantly turned ugly. Whoosh! Hu Xiao and Shuehi turned around at the same time and ran towards the east. Hu Xiao looked at Shuehi and frowned. "How did you provoke these giant beasts?" Shuehi said with a face full of bad luck. "I was just running when this group of things suddenly rushed out to attack me. There was no warning at all." Hu Xiao's face darkened when he heard that. "I encountered a lone giant beast. After killing that giant beast, I suddenly encountered this group of giant beasts. They seem to be here for revenge." When he heard Hu Xiao, Shuehi immediately said, "I'm the same as you. I only encountered this group of enormous beasts after I killed one of them. If you hadn't mentioned it, I wouldn't have noticed these details." "If that's the case, then our encounters are exactly the same?" Hu Xiao frowned. "Why would these giant beasts behave so strangely?" "I don't know either." Shuehi smiled bitterly. "I think we should think of a way to shake off these giant beasts behind us." Hearing Shuehi's words, Hu Xiao looked back at the giant beasts behind him and said in a deep voice, "Although these giant beasts are huge, they aren't slow at all. Moreover, they're more familiar with the terrain than we are. It will be difficult to shake them off." Shuehi heard this and asked, "Do you have any good ideas?" "If I had a good idea, I would have used it long ago." Hu Xiao glanced at Shuehi. "Let's run first." Shuehi looked helpless when he saw this. He could only take one step at a time. In the heavenly beast temple, when everyone saw the scene of Shuehi and Hu Xiao being chased by a group of giant beasts, their expressions were extremely strange. It wasn't because Shuehi and Hu Xiao were in a bad situation, but because the behavior of these giant beasts was incomprehensible. First, they sent a companion to die, and then they went after the enemy. Why does it feel like they're setting a trap? Lion Duke looked at the giant beasts curiously. "This is the first time I've seen such strange things. I've never seen such creatures in the demon realm before." Jiawen nodded. "This is the first time I've seen such things, too. They don't look like a race derived from the dragon clan." Judging from Shuehi and Hu Xiao's reactions, a single giant beast is no match for them. But when these giant beasts appear in groups, it's difficult for them to deal with them. Lion Duke couldn't help but look at another image. They've all encountered these giant beasts in the middle of the Zulong Mountains. Qinchuan should have encountered them soon. I wonder how Qinchuan will deal with them. Hearing Lion Duke's words, Ma Jiawen looked at the image of Qinchuan. At this time, Qinchuan was hurrying, and he wasn't far from where Shuehi and Hu Xiao had encountered the giant beasts. Rumble. When the ground suddenly shook, Qinchuan stopped moving forward. He looked ahead with a slightly surprised expression and whispered, "Is this an earthquake?" Before Qinchuan's voice fell, an iron-skinned giant beast emerged from the dense forest, roared at him, and then charged. Seeing this scene, Qinchuan instinctively chose to dodge. However, the speed of the giant beast was completely disproportionate to its size. In an instant, it was right in front of him. Seeing how fast the giant beast was, Qinchuan was shocked. He jumped up and landed firmly on the giant beast's back. At the same time, the giant beast roared and stomped on the ground with its front hooves. Then, it raised its body high, trying to flip Qinchuan off its back. However, Qinchuan reached out and grabbed the scales on the giant beast's back. No matter how the giant beast struggled, he couldn't get off. After struggling for a while, the giant beast realized that it couldn't flip Qinchuan off its back. It couldn't help but fly to the side of the Zulong Mountains. It seemed that it wanted to hit the mountains with its back and forcibly knock Qinchuan off its back. Seeing this, Qinchuan immediately transformed into a blue thunder dragon and roared. Just as he was about to leave the giant beast back, he found that the giant beast suddenly braked and stopped charging. Then it actually crawled on the ground and let out an extremely humble cry. Seeing this scene, Qin Xuan, who was about to attack the giant beast, couldn't help but be stunned. Then he thought that the giant beast's behavior might be related to his transformation into a blue thunder dragon. Thinking of this, Qin Xuan tried to transform into a human and land on the giant beast's back again. This time, the giant beast did not make any resistance and was as quiet and obedient as a cat. At the same time, dozens of giant beasts suddenly appeared in the forest again. They surrounded Qin Xuan in the center and knelt on the ground toward Qin Xuan. Their heads touched the ground to show their submission. Seeing these giant beasts crawling on the ground, Qin Xuan was completely stunned. Chapter 589. Are they trying to show their allegiance to me? Qin Xuan looked at the scene in front of him, and his expression became a little strange. He thought for a while, and then made a gesture to the giant beasts to get up. Seeing Qin Xuan's gesture, the giant beasts that were crawling on the ground stood up. Qin Xuan saw this and made a gesture to make them lie down again. The giant beasts that just stood up quickly lay down again. Seeing the giant beasts being so obedient, Qin Xuan was a little happy. He reached out and patted the giant beast under his feet and said, "Stand up." Qin Xuan did not know if the giant beasts understood what he said, but the giant beasts stood up according to his instructions. They were so obedient that it was ridiculous. That direction, Qin Xuan reached out and pointed at the dragon heart. He said to the giant beasts, "Go, roar." The giant beasts roared and immediately moved to the dragon heart's direction. The other giant beasts saw this and did not hesitate to follow. The whole team swept over like a hurricane. In the heavenly beast temple, everyone looked at the scene in the image. They were all stunned by the scene of Qin Xuan and the giant beasts getting along so well. Why was it that Xue He and Hu Xiao were being chased, but when it came to Qin Xuan, it became a harmony between man and beast? Before this, these giant beasts also attacked Qin Xuan, but when Qin Xuan became a dragon, these giant beasts became very obedient. It should be related to the real dragon presence that Qin Xuan was releasing. Lion Duke looked at the scene in the image and said softly, "It seems that these giant beasts have been living in Dragon Valley for a long time, and they are most likely servants of the dragon race." "I have the same thought." Ma Jiao nodded and said, "And I also thought of something. It is about these giant beasts that died alone before." Lion Duke looked at Ma Jiao curiously and asked, "What did you think of?" "Actually, these giant beast suicidal actions are actually to protect Dragon Valley." Ma Jiao spoke to the Lion Duke with a slightly complicated tone. Perhaps the dragons had given them an order not to attack the invaders before they were hurt. In order to protect Dragon Valley from being invaded by the invaders, they chose to send their companions to their deaths, using the revenge of their companions as the reason for their actions. After hearing Ma Jiao's deduction, Lion Baron was stunned. He said, "If that's the case, then these giant beasts are really obedient to the dragons. The dragon race has been gone for nearly 10,000 years. These giant beasts immediately submitted to Qin Xuan after sensing the true dragon aura on his body. From this, it can be seen that they are very loyal to the dragon race." Ma Jiao sighed and said, "Otherwise, Hu Xiao, Xuehe, and Qin Xuan wouldn't be treated so differently." Qin Xuan not only didn't encounter the obstruction of giant beasts, he even obtained the help of giant beasts. His action will definitely be faster than Hu Xiao and Xuehe. This will be very beneficial for Qin Xuan to find the Demon Emperor command token. Lion Duke looked at Yao Rao on the high platform and said with a smile, "Although I can't see Yao Rao's expression, she should be grinning from ear to ear." Yao Rao was indeed grinning from ear to ear. When she saw Qin Xuan was also attacked by giant beasts, she was still worried about the safety of Qin Xuan. But in the next moment, Qin Xuan became the master of these giant beasts and began to flaunt his prowess. The speed of finding the Demon Emperor command token was clearly much faster than Wind Howl and Xuehe. One must know Shueha and Hu Shao were still being chased by these giant beasts. Just when Yao Rao was secretly happy, Yao Feng and Shueqiu were also observing the movement of Qinchuan's side. Shueqiu somewhat curiously asked Yao Feng, "Your Majesty, when you entered this place that year, did you also encounter these giant beasts?" Yao Feng lightly nodded his head and said, "Indeed, these giant beasts are the guards of Dragon Valley, but they are only the outermost guards." With Yao Feng's strength, these giant beasts naturally couldn't stop him, but he also didn't kill these giant beasts. Otherwise, Qinchuan's group of 3 might not encounter these giant beasts. Shueqiu was somewhat surprised hearing this, then asked closely, "Could it be that there are even higher-level guards inside?" Yao Feng nodded his head and said, "The Dragon Heart of Zulong Mountain Range is the center of the entire Dragon Valley. From the outside to the inside, there are 3 layers of guards. The first layer is these giant beasts. The second layer of guards are some Yalong species. Each of them has the strength of top-level demon commander, and the third layer of guards are true dragon guards." Shueqiu was greatly surprised hearing this. There are still true dragons alive in Dragon Valley? No, they're all dead. Yao Feng shook his head and said, "I only came to this conclusion because I saw some remains of true dragons after entering." Shueqiu was confused hearing this, and asked, "The giant beasts outside and the Yalong species in the middle didn't die, so how did the true dragons inside die? I've thought about this question for more than 100 years, but I still can't figure it out." Yao Feng sighed. To be able to kill an adult true dragon with the power of a demon king without a sound, these enemies are obviously very strong. Shueqiu seemed to have thought of something, and her expression changed slightly, then asked, "Could it be related to Zerg? Could that snow river be the reason for the true dragon's death?" Yao Feng was silent for a while, then nodded his head and said, "Actually, I've already guessed this possibility from the beginning. Shuehi might be after this matter." Shueqiu was a little anxious when she heard this, and said, "Then we should stop him. If he succeeds, there might be some unpredictable disaster. If Shuehi succeeded and used the method that caused the true dragon's deaths on the demon realm, perhaps the entire demon realm would be dealt a fatal blow, and if it wasn't handled well, the demon realm would cease to exist." Yao Feng pursed his lips and said in a deep voice, "Of course I know that doing this is very risky, but if we can't find a reason for the true dragon's deaths, are we going to live in fear for the rest of our lives? There's no such thing as being a thief for 1,000 days. There's no such thing as guarding against a thief for 1,000 days. Only if Shuehi finds out the method, then we can use this opportunity to get rid of this problem once and for all." After hearing Yao Feng's reason, Shueqiu opened her mouth, but she didn't know how to refute Yao Feng. Just like what Yao Feng said, the method that caused the true dragon's deaths in Dragon Valley was equivalent to a ticking time bomb that could destroy the entire demon realm. Only by using Zerg's hands to find this ticking time bomb and remove it, then they could be at ease. But no buts. Yao Feng looked deeply into Shueqiu's eyes and said sincerely, "Qiu, I know what you're worried about. I will do my best to kill all the dangers in Dragon Valley." Shueqiu didn't say anything after seeing how stubborn Yao Feng was. The only thing she could do now was to pray that everything would develop according to their plan and not deviate from their plan. Chapter 590. In the forest, Hu Shao and Shui he ran all the way. After jumping over a small stream, they realized that the giant beasts that were chasing them suddenly stopped. These giant beasts stopped. Shui he was a little surprised. "Are they afraid of water?" After saying that, Shui he shook his head and denied this idea. If these giant beasts were afraid of water, they wouldn't have attacked him who was beside the stream. Even if these giant beasts were afraid of water, the water in the stream wouldn't be able to stop these giant beasts. This should be a boundary. Hu Shao guessed. When we leave this boundary, these giant beasts won't chase us anymore. Shui was a little surprised when he heard that. After thinking for a while, he replied, "It seems to be the case. When we ran away, we chose to go back the way we came and didn't run inside. These giant beasts were also purposely driving us in this direction. If that's the case, we should have entered their territory just now. That's why we were attacked. Hu Shao frowned and said, but the center of Dragon Valley is obviously in front of us. We are getting further and further away from the center of Dragon Valley. Hearing Hu Zhao's words, Shui's face couldn't help but become a little ugly. If they couldn't go to the center of Dragon Valley, then wouldn't they have come here for nothing? I don't know how Qin Chuan is now. He can't be so lucky that he was directly teleported to the Dragon Head. Shui clenched his teeth and said, even if we have to take a detour, I have to go to the Dragon Head. Hu Shao glanced at Shui and said lightly, who told you that the center of Dragon Valley is at the Dragon Head? The center should be at the Dragon Heart. Shui looked at Hu Shao with a little surprise and asked, are you sure? For the dragon race, the most important thing is naturally the Dragon Heart. Don't you know this? Hu Shao looked at Shui with a little confusion. Aren't you well-read and knowledgeable? You don't even know this? Shui's face changed slightly when he heard that. Then, he forced a smile and explained, I just forgot in a moment of desperation. Seeing the forced smile on Shui's face, Hu Shao only thought that Shui felt a little embarrassed because he felt embarrassed. He didn't think too much about it. Dong dong dong. At this moment, the giant beasts seemed to have confirmed that Shui and Hu Shao had no intention of coming over, so they turned around and slowly retreated. Seeing the behemoths leave, Shui asked Hu Shao, is there any way to avoid these behemoths and enter? Hu Shao thought for a moment and said to Shui, I should be the one asking you this question. You are the heir of the Fox King tribe and a master of illusions. Shui was stunned for a moment and asked, you want me to confuse these giant beasts with illusions? This is a feasible method. Hu Shao nodded, but I don't think you will help me. Shui glanced at Hu Shao and nodded. Indeed, I won't help you. If you don't take the initiative to say it, I might betray you when we enter. That way, we will have one less competitor. Shui's honest answer made Hu Shao think highly of him, but that was it. Since that's the case, let's part ways here. The road ahead will depend on our own abilities. Hu Shao said to Shui, although you probably won't be able to advance to the finals, I don't want you to die here. I'll return the same words to you. Shui took a deep look at Hu Shao, then turned around and hid in the forest. Hu Shao also turned around and left. The two who were running for their lives together just a moment ago went their separate ways. Just when Shui and Hu Shao were thinking of a way to get past the giant beasts and enter the center of Dragon Valley, Qin Chuan was sitting on the giant beast's back with a satisfied expression. He was leisurely enjoying the scenery in Dragon Valley. Occasionally, when he encountered some precious elixirs, he would ask the giant beast to stop and pluck the elixirs for fun. After 1 or 2 times, the giant beast would automatically stop when it passed by a place with elixirs and wait for Qin Chuan to pluck the elixirs before continuing on its way. It was simply too satisfying. Along the way, Qin Chuan also encountered a lot of giant beast groups. These giant beast groups also wanted to follow Qin Chuan, but they were all rejected by Qin Chuan. He didn't want to make too much of a commotion. These dozen of giant beasts were enough. Originally, Qin Chuan thought that Dragon Valley didn't have night, but the night quietly descended and shrouded the entire Dragon Valley. When night came, Qin Chuan decided not to continue on his journey and prepare to rest on the spot. The giant beasts that had been running around for a whole day also looked extremely tired. However, they didn't immediately rest. Instead, they divided into 3 groups. One group went to look for food, one group rested, and the last group was responsible for guarding Qin Chuan's side during the night. Qin Chuan was a little surprised when he saw the giant beast's spontaneous actions. He had never given such an order to the giant beast before. At this moment, everything that the giant beasts did was spontaneous. These giant beasts should have done this kind of thing often in the past, so it became a habit. Qin Chuan looked at these giant beasts with a subtle expression and muttered in a low voice, but it said that there hasn't been a true dragon in Dragon Valley for nearly 10,000 years. These giant beasts shouldn't be those giant beasts from back then. They should be the descendants of those giant beasts. If that's the case, then how did they develop such a habit? Could it be that they rely on the inheritance in their bloodline? After thinking for a while, Chuan couldn't think of a suitable answer. He might as well not think about it anymore. He quietly leaned against the big tree and prepared to sleep. Roar! Just when Chuan just closed his eyes, an extremely loud dragon roar suddenly rang in his ears. He subconsciously opened his eyes and looked around, but he didn't see anything. The giant beasts were also the same as before. There was nothing special. Seeing this scene, Chuan couldn't help but frown and said in a low voice, "Could it be that I'm hallucinating?" With this thought, Chuan once again leaned against the tree trunk and closed his eyes. And this time, the loud dragon roar sounded again. Chuan suddenly opened his eyes and looked around, and then looked at the sky. Everything was the same as before he closed his eyes. Nothing had changed, but he was sure that the dragon roar he heard just now was definitely not an illusion. It really existed. How could this be? Chuan frowned. Why did I hear the dragon roar after I closed my eyes? Chuan couldn't figure it out. He tried to close his eyes again. As expected, the dragon roar sounded again. This time, Chuan didn't open his eyes immediately, but wanted to see what would happen next. This time, it wasn't only the dragon roar that appeared, there was also a giant dragon that covered the sky. Chapter 591. Chuan was stunned as he looked at the gigantic dragon that covered the sky. He couldn't figure out why he would see such a scene after closing his eyes. While Chuan was pondering over these questions, a gigantic eyeball suddenly appeared in front of him. The size of this eyeball was comparable to that of dragons, and the dense, evil aura it exuded was enough to send chills down one's spine. At the same time, the gigantic dragon also noticed the appearance of the eyeball. It roared at the eyeball, opened its mouth, and spat out a ball of blazing dragon's breath. It was like a falling star bombarding the eyeball. However, all of this disappeared in an instant under the indifferent gaze of the eyeball. When the dragon's breath disappeared, the eyeball's gaze fell on the gigantic dragon. Faced with the gaze of the eyeball, the gigantic dragon roared angrily, then swayed its huge body and rushed toward the eyeball. The next moment, a terrifying explosion occurred, and the whole world trembled. Whoosh! Chuan suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were full of horror. The terrifying explosion just now made him feel like he was about to be annihilated. If he hadn't opened his eyes in time, he had a hunch that he might have died. His consciousness would have been completely shattered. Chuan raised his hand to wipe the sweat on his forehead, then looked around. The giant beasts guarding the side had been replaced. Everything around him was normal, and there were no problems. However, Chuan clearly knew that the biggest problem occurred after he closed his eyes. After calming down, a huge question emerged in Chuan's mind. Who is that gigantic dragon? What is that eyeball? Why did such a terrifying battle break out between them? Chuan had seen the scene of nascent soul stage cultivators fighting. Although it was extremely terrifying, it was completely incomparable to the scene he saw before. Chuan was sure that the strength of the gigantic dragon was definitely above the nascent soul stage. Perhaps it was a higher realm that he didn't understand. Thinking of this, Chuan tried to close his eyes again, but this time, nothing happened. Everything was as normal as usual. That image disappeared. Perhaps the final explosion was the end. Chuan narrowed his eyes and whispered to himself. Then, what happened before that? Can I still see it? When Chuan thought of this, the scene in front of him suddenly changed from pitch black to a starry sky. Before Chuan could exclaim in surprise, he was attracted by the scene in front of him. A golden dragon flew past his eyes and crashed straight into a black beetle in the distance. A silent explosion erupted in the starry sky. The heat wave that hit him in the face made Chuan feel like he was going to melt in an instant. After the explosion, the bodies of the dragon and the beetle were torn apart and fell into the endless darkness under the starry sky. Without their cover, Chuan was finally able to see the entire starry sky clearly. Countless dragons and beetles were fighting. This was a starry sky battlefield. Looking at Zerg and the dragons entangled together, the concept of Zerg invasion almost subconsciously popped up in Qinchuan's mind. If his guess was correct, this scene should have happened during the Great Chaos tens of thousands of years ago. He was witnessing the reappearance of history. So this is how the dragons fought Zerg back then. Qinchuan looked at the starry sky battlefield in front of him. He was excited, but also a little puzzled. The dragons were so powerful. Why did they go extinct? Just when these thoughts appeared in Qinchuan's mind, a huge eyeball suddenly appeared in the starry sky. The eyeball rotated flexibly. Wherever its gaze landed, the dragons turned into stone and fell. The dragons, who originally had a great advantage, instantly fell into a passive situation. The situation became precarious. So that's how it is. It's the eyeball's doing. Qinchuan suddenly understood. Zerg was originally no match for the dragons, but because of the existence of this eyeball, Zerg could defeat the dragons and even exterminate them. And just when Qinchuan thought of this, the eyeball suddenly turned and looked at him. This gaze that transcended time and space made Qinchuan feel as if he had fallen into an ice cave. He was completely frozen in place and could not move. His consciousness also became sluggish. He was like an old man who was about to die and was about to step into the dark abyss of death. Buzz! At this moment, a wisp of green smoke suddenly floated out of Qinchuan's brain and blocked Qinchuan's eyes from looking at the eyeball. With the help of the green smoke, Qinchuan quickly regained consciousness and regained control of his body. Hiss! Just when Qinchuan was still in shock, an extremely sharp hissing sound suddenly came from the eyeball. It cut through the barrier of time and space, penetrated the green smoke, and crashed straight into Qinchuan's brain. It wanted to directly strangle Qinchuan's consciousness, but at this moment, a golden sword aura flew over and completely destroyed the hissing sound. Who? Qinchuan was like a person who woke up from a nightmare. He suddenly sat up straight and looked in front of him in horror. Bean-sized beads of sweat kept dripping from his forehead, and his face was extremely pale. When the giant beasts around saw that Qinchuan had woken up, they all let out a series of extremely humble cries. Then, they brought some mountain fruits to Qinchuan and motioned for Qinchuan to enjoy. Qinchuan looked at the mountain fruits in front of him, and his uneasy heart relaxed a little. He leaned back against the trunk again and let out a long sigh of relief. Looking at the bright sunlight around him, he murmured in a low voice, "What I experienced just now, was it a nightmare?" Looking at the wisp of green smoke floating in front of him that had not yet dissipated, Qinchuan was stunned. What happened just now, was it not a dream? What I've seen, what I've experienced, is it all real? Qinchuan's face showed a touch of disbelief. Did I really just witness a great war that took place 10,000 years ago during the Great Chaos period and witnessed with my own eyes how the Dragon Clan went extinct? That eyeball, it saw me. It's still alive? Thinking of this, Qinchuan's mood, which had just calmed down, became uneasy again. He did not know why he saw these things, but he was sure that if that wisp of green smoke had not helped him block the eyeball's gaze, he would have been a dead man by now. He couldn't understand why he was seeing these scenes and why he was experiencing all of this. What were these things reminding him of? What should he do? A series of questions surged into Qinchuan's mind, causing him to almost break down. Chapter 592. Is Qinchuan having a nightmare? In Heavenly Beast Temple, seeing Qinchuan's performance after waking up, Yaorao couldn't help but reveal a touch of doubt on her face. For cultivators, having a nightmare was a very rare thing. Only when one was about to advance to the next realm, perhaps because of the heart devil, they would have a nightmare phenomenon. At this time, Qinchuan was already a great circle of foundation establishment and was only one step away from Jinan realm, so having a nightmare situation was not a strange thing. Since Yaorao had noticed the abnormal situation of Qinchuan having a nightmare, other people naturally also noticed it. Regarding this, Majority of people felt somewhat surprised. After all, Qin performance had always been extremely dazzling. It could be said that he had countless highlights. But at this time, a nightmare that usually appeared on ordinary cultivators appeared on his body. So how could everyone not be surprised? Qin actually had a nightmare. Could it be that his mental state is not dustless? Ma Jiawen somewhat doubtfully looked at Lion Duke. Looking at Qin talent, his mental state should be dustless, so this kind of situation shouldn't occur when he is about to advance to the next realm. I'm also not too clear about this, but I already knew this boy when he was still in refining Qi realm. At that time, his performance was extremely outstanding, and even when he was captured by me, he never had a nightmare. So this kind of situation appearing now is indeed somewhat abnormal. Lion Duke slightly frowned. Perhaps the change in the surrounding environment caused this kind of situation to appear. Everything is hard to say. Hearing Lion Duke's ambiguous answer, Ma Jiawen once again looked at Qin on the screen, and her eyes couldn't help but flashed with a touch of worry. She hoped that Qin didn't have an accident. Otherwise, she was truly worried that Yao Rao would go crazy. And on the other side, because of the harmonious relationship between Qin and the giant beast, people were somewhat worried that Qin's progress would far surpass Hu Xiao and Shui He. But at this time, they were relieved a lot. From the situation of Qin's nightmare, now Qin should be on the verge of advancing to Jindan realm. And at any time he might cross the tribulation, and the Heart Devil would become a very big problem that would trouble Qin. In the following period of time, whether Qin could continue to concentrate on looking for Demon Emperor Command was still unknown. In their view, the most important thing for Qin to do now was to deal with the problem of the Heart Devil, and not to look for Demon Emperor Command. If Qin didn't care about the Heart Devil now, and when the Heart Devil grew stronger in the future, it would be very difficult for him to go back and deal with the Heart Devil. Since everyone could discover the problem, Xueqiu and Yao Feng could naturally also discover it. Regarding the matter of Qin's sudden appearance of the Heart Devil, they were somewhat puzzled. From Qin's previous performance, he should be a person with a firm Dao heart, and there shouldn't be any Heart Devil. Xueqiu was somewhat puzzled. Could it be that Qin's talent is not as outstanding as we thought? But for him to be able to obtain his current achievements at his age is really very amazing, strange, really strange. Hearing Xueqiu's words, Yao Feng faintly said, "There's nothing strange about it. Flowers don't bloom for 100 days. Although Qin is a genius, it's impossible for him to always have a smooth sailing life. Now that he has encountered the Heart Devil, it can temper his temperament and willpower. It's better than having the Heart Devil appear when he's about to undergo the nascent soul stage thunder tribulation." Hearing Yao Feng's words, Xueqiu was slightly stunned. At first glance, Yao Feng's words seemed to make sense, but after thinking about it carefully, it made people feel that Yao Feng was defending Qin and speaking up for Qin. This made Xueqiu's gaze towards Yao Feng become somewhat strange. "Are you defending Qin? Are you defending your future son-in-law?" Yao Feng glanced at Yao Rao, who was sitting at the side, and then looked at Xueqiu and asked, "Who else do you think our future son-in-law can be other than Qin? Who else can our daughter like?" As the subject of everyone's discussion, Qin had once again embarked on his journey to the heart of the dragon. He sat on the back of the giant beast, his gaze unfocused as he looked ahead. His mind was completely immersed in last night's dream. To be honest, Qin still felt that something was not quite right. What happened last night was not so much a dream or an illusion, but more like a dream. This was because he had never seen such a scene before and could not imagine it at all, especially that huge eyeball. It was something that could not be imagined at all. As for who the person who had visited him in the dream was, it was probably the giant dragon that had first appeared and covered the sky. Involuntarily, Qin looked at the mountain range not far away. If one had to describe how huge the giant dragon's body was, it should be about the same size as this mountain range. If Qin knew some legends about Zulong mountain range, perhaps he would not be confused now. Just when Qin Chuan was thinking about these questions, the giant beast suddenly stopped. Qin Chuan somewhat doubtfully looked at the giant beast below him and asked, "Why did you stop?" Ayo! The giant beast let out a low cry in response to Qin Chuan. But unfortunately, Qin Chuan did not understand what the giant beast was trying to express. After determining that the giant beast was not willing to take another step forward, Qin Chuan could only jump down from the back of the giant beast and prepared to continue forward. When Qin Chuan walked forward, those giant beasts behind him knelt on the ground one after another and placed their heads on the ground facing Qin Chuan to show their respect to Qin Chuan and also to respectfully send him off. Regarding this, Qin Chuan's response was to wave his hand. "Let's meet again if fate allows." After advancing alone in the forest for a while, Qin Chuan did not encounter any special situation, but he felt a little lost, so he decided to climb the mountain again to observe the terrain and confirm the next route. When Qin Chuan was about to go up the mountain, the clear sky suddenly darkened, but then returned to normal. Seeing this scene, Qin Chuan subconsciously looked up at the sky, but found nothing. Just when Qin Chuan lowered his head and was about to continue forward, the sky suddenly darkened again. Qin Chuan, who was already prepared, quickly looked up, but he only had time to see a thick and huge tail. "That's a bird." Qin Chuan was slightly stunned. Just now, a bird flew over his head, so the sky darkened? Just when Qin Chuan was thinking about this question, another bird flew over the sky. When Qin Chuan saw the appearance of this bird, he was completely stunned. "This is a Yalong species?" Qin Chuan could not help but exclaim. There was actually a Yalong species in this world. The so-called Yalong species was a brand new species born from the union of the dragon race and other races. This species was collectively known as the Yalong species, but with the disappearance of the dragon race, the Yalong species had long gone extinct, almost never appearing in the outside world. Chapter 593. Not only was Qin Chuan shocked by the sudden appearance of the sky dragon species, everyone in the heavenly beast temple who saw this scene through Qin Chuan was also shocked. There were still sky dragon species living in Dragon's Valley, and there seemed to be quite a lot of them. Subconsciously, everyone looked at Yao Feng, who was sitting on the high platform. As the person who controlled the entrance to Dragon's Valley, Yao Feng must have known that there were sky dragon species living in Dragon's Valley. Facing everyone's gaze, Yao Feng said indifferently, "I have indeed made a trip to Dragon's Valley in the early days. However, I only walked around the periphery and did not go deeper." Snow Autumn, who was sitting at the side, heard Yao Feng's words, and her expression changed. No one was more serious than Yao Feng when it came to lying. Hearing Yao Feng's words, everyone's expression changed. They wouldn't believe that Yao Feng had never seen a sky dragon in Dragon Valley before, but now that Yao Feng didn't want to admit it, they couldn't force him to tell the truth. Everyone couldn't help but look at the expressionless black King Drake. Speaking of which, in the demon realm, the most suitable group to control Dragon Valley should be the Drake King's subordinates. The Flood Dragon, as the lesser dragon species closest to the true dragon, was once the leader of all the lesser dragon species. However, after the Great Chaos, the true dragons were almost extinct, and the lesser dragon species also disappeared. At that time, the flood dragon species also suffered heavy losses and was unable to recover. It took them thousands of years to recover, and they established the current Flood Dragon King tribe. However, the flood dragon species that followed the true dragon and was revered by thousands of monsters had already lost their prestige and were unable to recreate their former glory. However, if the Drake tribe obtained the entrance to Dragon's Valley, everything would be different. Not only could the Drake tribe find the true dragon's inheritance in Dragon's Valley, they could also control the sky dragon species again. Perhaps they could recreate the glory of the Drake tribe. Unfortunately, from Yao Feng's attitude, it was clear that he had no intention of handing over the access to Dragon Valley to the WRM King's tribe. Otherwise, the Black WRM King wouldn't have waited until today to find out about the existence of Dragon Valley and the existence of a Sky Dragon. Facing the gazes of the crowd, The black WYRM king appeared very calm on the surface, but his heart was already restless, and the blood in his body was boiling. That person didn't lie to me. There is still the existence of a Yalong species in the Dragon's Valley. There must be the inheritance of the true dragon. As long as I obtain the inheritance of the true dragon, I can transform into a true dragon, and from then on, I don't have to listen to anyone's orders anymore. The Black Flood Dragon King roared in his heart. He finally saw the chance to fulfill his wish of so many years. Whoosh! Another sky dragon flew over Chinchuan's head. He quickly climbed to the top of the mountain. The higher he climbed, the more sky dragon he could see. Whoosh! A sky dragon species that was slightly short but extremely fast flashed past Chinchuan's eyes and headed straight for the mountain peak. When Chinchuan saw this grayish-black sky dragon species, a trace of fear involuntarily flashed across his eyes. This sky dragon species' aura was comparable to a demon commander, and its speed was extremely fast. If it collided with Chinchuan's body, his internal organs would probably be smashed to pieces. No wonder those giant beasts are unwilling to go forward. It turns out that this is the territory of these sky dragon species. Chinchuan's face turned serious and said in a low voice, "We've already come this far. If we leave because of the danger, it's not worth it." Initially, Chinchuan wanted to try and see if he could deter these sky dragon species in his dragon form. However, after thinking about it over and over again, he gave up on this idea. One must know that these sky dragon species were extremely strong. It would be fine if he could deter them, but if he failed, it would arouse the greed of these sky dragon species, and he would be in danger. A man's wealth was his own ruin. In front of these sky dragon species, the true dragon bloodline in Chinchuan's body was the biggest sin. Finally, after going through numerous dangers and difficulties, Chinchuan finally reached the peak of the mountain. When he looked into the distance, what he saw was no longer a dense forest, but a huge grassland. On this grassland, there were tens of thousands of dragon subspecies. Some were running, some were flying, and all of them were emitting an extremely powerful aura, causing one's heart to palpitate. At the end of the grassland was the heart of the mountain range. If I want to get to the heart of the dragon, I have to go through this grassland. Chinchuan frowned and muttered in a low voice. If I'm in the forest, I can still use the cover of the trees to move forward quietly. However, once I show myself on the grassland, there's nowhere to hide. If these sky dragon species attack me, it will be dangerous. But if I go up the mountain, Chinchuan subconsciously looked at the mountain range in front of him. When he saw the sky dragon species flying above the mountain range, he shook his head helplessly. Going up the mountain was not much safer than going down the mountain. Just as Chinchuan was thinking about how to get to the heart of the dragon, everyone in the heavenly demon temple was stunned by the huge number of sky dragon species on the grassland. Almost every one of these thousands of sky dragon species had the strength of a demonic commander, and some are even stronger than an ordinary demonic commander. Once they gathered together, they would be a terrifying force that could not be ignored. No wonder the flood dragons were able to dominate the demon realm. With just these sky dragon species, who could be a match for the flood dragons? Lion Duke sighed and said, "It's a pity that the flood dragons have become the flood dragon king tribe today. They have lost their ruling power. Otherwise, who knows who would be sitting at the top right now?" Hearing Lion Duke's sigh, Ma Jiawen nodded in agreement. She had always heard about the strength of the sky dragon species, but she had never seen it with her own eyes. Now that she saw the scene in front of her, she finally had a clearer understanding of the strength of the flood dragons. Suddenly, Ma Jiawen seemed to have thought of something. She asked Lion Duke curiously, "Big cousin, if Chinchuan and the Black Flood Dragon King appeared in front of these sky dragon species at the same time, would they listen to Chinchuan or the Black Flood Dragon King's orders?" Hearing Ma Jiawen's question, Lion Duke glanced at her and asked, "If it's your brother and your father, would you listen to your brother or your father?" Ma Jiawen was stunned for a moment. Then her face turned slightly red. She whispered, "With Chinchuan's situation, at most, he's a stepfather, right?" A stepfather is still a father. Although you don't like him, you still have to listen to him on the surface. Lion Duke laughed, but this is just my guess. I don't know the specifics. Chapter 594. In the end, Qin Chuan still decided to cross the great grassland. The mountain path was too rugged and too dangerous. Moreover, he did not know why, but in his heart, he faintly resisted the idea of standing on the mountain peak. After he walked down the mountain peak, that uncomfortable feeling gradually disappeared. After returning to the forest, Qin Chuan observed his surroundings. He discovered that the dragon subspecies that were active in the forest were all relatively young. Their strength was basically at the demon general stage. This allowed Qin Chuan to relax. It would be easier for him to advance through the forest. When the sun was hot, Qin Chuan arrived at the edge of the forest. If he took another step forward, he would reach the plains. He looked at the vast plains up ahead, but he did not plan on moving immediately. He planned to wait until night fell before advancing stealthily. Qin Chuan observed the terrain around him and casually found a shady place to sit down. He tried to close his eyes and sleep, but the image of the astral battlefield from last night did not appear again. Qin Chuan deduced that the astral battlefield would only appear at night, or it would never appear again. Regardless, it was a good thing for him right now because he needed a rest. He did not want to think about anything else. Just as Qin Chuan closed his eyes and prepared to rest, Hu Xiao and Xue He, who had parted ways, began to attempt to pass through the territory of the beasts and make their way to the heart of the dragon. However, compared to Qin Chuan's progress, their progress was much slower, and the difficulty was much greater. Xue followed the train of thought that Hu Xiao had given him and moved forward cautiously. Whenever he encountered a giant beast, he would use his illusion to confuse the giant beast and make the giant beast see him as a comrade. The effect was surprisingly good. Along the way, he was no longer attacked by giant beasts. The only regret was that when he encountered a group of giant beasts, he had to take a detour. With his current strength, it was very difficult to use his illusion on dozens of giant beasts at the same time. On the other side, Hu Xiao's method was much more barbaric. He actually transformed into his original form and turned into a big white tiger. He ran through the forest. Along the way, no matter if he encountered a beast or any other situation, he would not stop moving forward. If there was a beast blocking his way, he would immediately strike it back without killing it. Although he encountered more battles, his speed of advancement was extremely fast. His progress had gradually surpassed Xue He's. At the same time, night once again fell on the land of the Dragon Valley. When the night gradually darkened, Qin Chuan, who was sleeping, once again heard the loud dragon roar. As expected, the huge figure of the dragon that covered the sky once again appeared in front of his eyes. Along with the dragon was that huge eyeball. The scene that he saw last night once again appeared in front of his eyes. As expected, it's here again. Qin Chuan slowly opened his eyes. After yesterday's experience, he was now much calmer when facing this kind of situation. This time, Qin Chuan did not continue to close his eyes to feel the cruelty and blood of the starry sky battlefield. He stood up and raised his head to look at the sky. After that, he walked towards the outside of the forest. He wanted to pass through this grassland before the sky turned bright and reach the place where the dragon's heart was. The grassland that was bustling during the day became much quieter at night. Other than the sound of the wind, there would occasionally be one or two low roars, which would disappear very quickly. Walking in the bushes that reached his waist, Qin Chuan appeared to be especially cautious. After advancing for a period of time and realizing that there were no traces of the dragon subspecies that discovered him, Qin Chuan quietly increased his speed. His figure was like a ghost as he shuttled through the grassland. During the day, when he stood on a mountain peak and looked at the grassland from afar, Qin Chuan did not feel that this grassland was that big. After experiencing it personally, he realized that it was almost impossible for him to pass through this grassland in one night. Therefore, he had no choice but to change his course of action. He He would try his best to find a safe place to hide before the day arrives. He would only act when night falls again. Just when Qin Chuan was thinking about these things, a burst of loud roars suddenly came from the depths of the grassland in front of him. It rose and fell one after another and gradually connected together. The entire grassland became restless. Qin Chuan subconsciously stopped moving forward. His eyes were filled with uncertainty as he looked in front of him. He did not know what happened just now. Why would so many roars suddenly resound in the quiet grassland? When the sleeping dragon subspecies woke up one after another, his situation suddenly became a little dangerous. A dragon subspecies that was as huge as an iron tower walked slowly from behind Qin Chuan. When Qin Chuan saw this, he immediately prepared himself for battle. However, the dragon subspecies completely ignored Qin Chuan. It only roared at the sky and walked step by step into the depths of the grassland. When Qin Chuan saw this, he could not help but reveal a trace of doubt. He looked around and realized that these dragon subspecies did not care about his existence at all. They only had one goal, and that was to go into the depths of the grassland. This made Qin Chuan curious. What exactly was in the depths of the grassland that attracted these dragon subspecies? After pondering for a while, Qin Chuan decided to go into the depths of the grassland to take a look. Perhaps there might be some unexpected gains. When he thought of this, Qin Chuan ran in the direction that the dragon subspecies were heading. After 2 hours, when the dragon subspecies began to appear in front of him, he had no choice but to stop running. He began to carefully walk through the gaps between the dragon subspecies. If any dragon subspecies were to launch a surprise attack on Qin Chuan at this time, perhaps Qin Chuan would die a horrible death. However, these dragon subspecies completely ignored Qin Chuan, as if they did not see Qin Chuan's existence at all. After walking for half an hour, Qin Chuan finally approached the center of the dragon subspecies. He saw the dragon subspecies that was calling out to all the dragon subspecies. It was a light gray flood dragon, a demon king. The moment Qin Chuan saw this flood dragon, he was certain that this flood dragon had the strength of a demon king. Its strength might even be stronger than the black king dragon. Oh no, I was too reckless. Qin Chuan cursed in his heart. The other dragon subspecies might ignore him, but it did not mean that this flood dragon with the strength of a demon king would also ignore him. Just as Qin Chuan was carefully looking for a corner to hide himself, the gray king dragon suddenly roared at the sky. Then it spat out a golden crystal clear pearl from its mouth. When this pearl appeared in the air, all the dragon subspecies crawled on the ground and let out sorrowful cries, as if they were paying tribute to something. Chapter 595. When he saw the golden pearl that the dragon spat out, Qin Chuan felt the golden pill in his brain suddenly tremble violently, as if it was attracted by something and wanted to fly out of Qin Chuan's brain. Noticing the change in the golden pill in his brain, Qin Chuan's expression changed slightly. At the same time, the dragon seemed to have noticed Qin Chuan's existence and looked at Qin Chuan, who was hidden among the many dragon subspecies. Roar! The dragon roared at the sky. The aura it emitted suddenly became fierce and rushed towards Qin Chuan, wanting to drown Qin Chuan. Facing the dragon's attack, Qin Chuan's expression suddenly became ugly. It was almost impossible for him to dodge this attack. If he didn't do anything, he would definitely die. At this critical moment, Qin Chuan could only gambling that the dragon would withdraw its attack after he transformed into a dragon. At this moment, Qin Chuan didn't have time to think. He immediately roared and transformed into a dragon, releasing his aura as much as possible. The attack that was approaching him suddenly stopped in front of him. Whoosh! A huge dragon head suddenly appeared in front of Qin Chuan. That pair of huge silver-gray vertical pupils stared at Qin Chuan and said in a deep voice, "True dragon." Facing the dragon's question, Qin Chuan nodded, swallowed his saliva, and said, "Can you stay away from me first?" Hearing Qin Chuan's words, the dragon slowly retreated a little, its pair of vertical pupils still staring at Qin Chuan. and said in a deep voice, "How many years has it been? A true dragon has finally appeared in Dragon's Valley again." Qin Chuan looked at the dragon with fear and asked, "Do you want to kill me?" The dragon looked at Qin Chuan with a subtle gaze and asked, "Why would I want to kill you? Because you're a true dragon and will threaten my position in Dragon's Valley. Or because I want to extract your dragon heart blood and transform into a true dragon." Qin Chuan was silent. He didn't know how to answer the dragon's question. Should he admit that he was afraid? Although being afraid of a demon king wasn't something shameful. The dragon saw that Qin Chuan didn't speak, but it wasn't surprised. Its body suddenly shrank and turned into a middle-aged man standing in front of Qin Chuan and said to Qin Chuan, "My name is Hui Tong. This is the name I gave myself." Qin Chuan reached out his hand to Hui Tong. "My name is Qin Chuan." Seeing Qin Chuan reach out his hand, Hui Tong's eyes moved slightly, but he didn't reach out to shake Qin Chuan's hand. Instead, he turned his head and pointed at the golden bead in the sky and asked Qin Chuan, "Do you know what that is?" Hearing Hui Tong's words, Qin Chuan subconsciously looked at the golden bead. He thought for a moment and answered, "Although I don't know what this golden bead is, I can feel that this thing must be related to true dragons." Hui Tong nodded and said, "Your feeling is right. This thing is called a dragon bead." Dragon bead? Qin Chuan didn't understand. What is a dragon bead? Hearing Qin Chuan's question, Hui Tong sighed faintly and said softly, "It seems that the inheritance of true dragons in the outside world is really broken. Now, true dragons don't even recognize dragon beads." Hearing Hui Tong's words, Qin Chuan's expression suddenly became awkward. He really didn't recognize dragon beads, and it was his first time hearing the term dragon bead. Seeing Qin Chuan's awkward expression, Hui Tong pursed his lips and asked, "Who is the elder in your family?" Qin Chuan thought for a moment, then answered, "Azure Dragon Songhao." Hearing Qin Chuan say Azure Dragon Songhao's name, Hui Tong's face couldn't help but reveal a look of reminiscence. He asked softly, "Is he still alive?" Qin Chuan nodded and answered, "He is now in the Dragon Spirit Lake of the Star Dragon Federation, trapped at the bottom of the lake." Star Dragon Federation. That's a country in the human world. Hui Tong sighed. After so many years, to be able to hear those familiar names again, it's really touching. Qin Chuan asked curiously, "Senior, you know Senior Song Hao?" Hui Tong nodded and said with emotion, "Back then, when I was still very young, I met Master Azure Dragon. At that time, Master had just inherited the position of Divine Beast Azure Dragon. Not long after, a great battle with Zur broke out. After that, I never saw Master again. I originally thought that Master had died in that great battle, but I didn't expect that he was imprisoned in the human world." Qin Chuan looked at Hui Tong with a subtle expression and asked, "So, what is a dragon bead?" Hui Tong reached out and grabbed the dragon bead in the sky. His gaze was complicated as he looked at the dragon bead that was emitting a gentle golden light. He said softly to Qin Chuan, "The dragon bead is the symbol of the previous dragon masters. It is also where the true dragon inheritance lies." Dragon Master, true dragon inheritance. Qin Chuan looked at the dragon bead in Hui Tong's hand with extreme shock. He never would have thought that this seemingly unremarkable golden bead would actually be the symbol of the true dragon master. At the same time, it was where the true dragon inheritance lay. Seeing the shock on Qin Chuan's face, Hui Tong's expression couldn't help but become sorrowful. He said softly, "The dragon bead wasn't originally like this. The ancestral dragon completely unleashed the power of the dragon bead in that world-shaking battle. Although it successfully defeated the enemy, it caused the dragon bead to be covered in dust. Even now, thousands of years have passed, and it's hard for it to regain its former glory." Hearing Hui Tong's words, Qin Chuan's expression couldn't help but become complicated. The dragon bead was covered in dust, and the true dragon was extinct. The history of the dragon race was a bit too tragic. So many years have passed. I've always hoped for a true dragon to descend in Dragon's Valley to wash away the dust on the dragon bead and make it regain its former glory. I didn't think that when I was about to give up in despair, you would appear and bring me the good news that Master Azure Dragon is still alive. Hui Tong looked deeply at Qin Chuan. Although you are very weak, you are the only hope for the true dragon to reappear in this world. Hearing Hui Tong's words, Qin Chuan frowned slightly and asked, "Aren't you afraid that the people outside will hear this? With my current strength, if you give me the dragon bead, I definitely won't be able to defend it. Even if others didn't covet the dragon bead, the Black Dragon King would definitely attack regardless of everything." Qin Chuan didn't have to think about this. Hui Tong smiled and said to Qin Chuan, "The outside world surveillance on you was blocked the moment you enter the grasslands. That little guy who calls himself the Demon King has some ability, but if he wants to extend his hand that far, he'll have to ask for my opinion." Hearing Hui Tong's words, Qin Chuan asked curiously, "Senior, you know the Demon King? He's come here often in the past 100 years. He wants to investigate the dragon nest, but I've stopped him every time," Hui Tong said firmly. "Aside from the true dragon, no one has the right to enter the dragon nest. Even I can't." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.